Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025 Board of Education regular board meeting. We will open this meeting at 4:32. Do we have any public comment for closed session? I'm seeing none. We're going to retire to closed session, and we will return for open session at 6 p.m. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 22nd, 2025 regular Board of Education meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 6:10. And we have language access. Welcome.
Thank you. We have interpretation into Spanish and ASL available through Zoom. Buenas tardes. Tenemos interpretación al español disponible. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to announce for the record that this meeting is being conducted pursuant to California Government Code Section 54953B concerning teleconferencing of meetings. Board Member Caffrey is participating in this meeting via Zoom from 71 Salt Cedar Lane, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. In accordance with the Brown Act, this location has been identified on the agenda for this meeting. I would now like to ask Board Member Caffrey to respond to the following questions. Are you able to hear our proceedings on this end?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes.
Has the agenda been posted at your location?
Yes.
Is your location such that any member of the public could participate in the public portions of this teleconference meeting from your location?
Yes.
Members of the board, are you able to hear Board Member Caffrey? I'm seeing nods. Thank you. Because we are having a meeting with teleconferencing, all actions today will be a roll call vote. Thank you. Dr. Maldonado, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand and face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have one announcement from closed session. In closed session, the board took action to approve the June 30th, 2025 final settlement agreement and general release between parents and district in Student versus Santa Barbara Unified School District, Special Education Due Process Case, OAH case number 20250400960, pursuant to which the district has agreed to fund and provide educational services to the student, and the student's parents have agreed to release claims against the district in exchange for educational services as specified in the agreement. The roll call vote was as follows. 5 members voted in favor. It was unanimous. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Maldonado because we have the honor of swearing in our new student school board member.
Board members, it is my honor and privilege to present to you our new student board member, which of course you have selected. I'm going to ask him to come and stand next to me at this time and take the oath of office as our student board member. So you're going to, sorry, Carlos, we'll do it this way. Now hold your right hand up. Do you, Carlos Taft Vasquez, solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that you take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you are about to enter. Okay, and you also read that. Here.
I, Carlos Taft Vasquez, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Carlos. And as your first act as a school board member, you get to take the next item, which is the student board member report.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Carlos Vasquez, and I'm going to be a senior at San Marcos High School next year. I'm incredibly honored to be here and grateful for the opportunity to serve in this role. I've been involved in many different parts of my community over the years, and something I've really come to believe in is how strong a community can be when people show up for each other. I've seen what this looks like, and I hope to bring that same energy and experience to this board. With everything that's happening right now in our schools and community, it is clear how much it matters that students feel supported, included, and like they have a voice. As a Latino student, that means a lot to me personally, and it's a big part of why I care so deeply about this topic. I'm really looking forward to learning, listening, and doing what I can to help make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you. And we will now turn it over to Dr. Maldonado for the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. I also want to follow up a little bit with Carlos' comments. Recent federal immigration enforcement actions with unprecedented use of force and racial profiling have caused genuine fear and confusion across the Santa Barbara Unified School District. These actions are not just a matter of policy. They are deeply personal. Having immigrated to this country as a child, I can relate to the fear and uncertainty that often accompany the experience of becoming a new American, even in the most positive circumstances. I want to assure you that we have investigated claims that were made about families at our local charter school Adelante that is located on the Franklin campus, and thankfully, we didn't have credible evidence that this happened. However, we are taking all of these events seriously and creating contingency plans to anticipate various scenarios. We at Santa Barbara Unified remain committed to the board's resolution on protecting immigrant students and families and continue to partner with community agencies to provide resources and support to families. Our most sacred duty as parents, educators, and citizens is to protect the well-being of every child. At Santa Barbara Unified, we lead with love, justice, and humanity, ensuring our schools remain places where every family is welcome and every child can thrive. One of the most special things about our communities is that when one family feels pain, we all feel it. Santa Barbara has always been a place that stands together. I have been very heartened by the many families reaching out to support those affected. That is who we are. Neighbors who show up for one another in every way we can. As part of our culture of care, we are strengthening our school safety plans for the upcoming 25-26 school year, applying lessons from other communities to better prepare for potential federal officer visits. This includes a 4-part plan shared with staff. For those of you who missed it in our message today, that includes 1, revising and improving our safety plans. 2, staff training before the school year starts. 3, community resources and partnering to support with nonprofit agencies that are committed to this work. And 4, commitment to communicating as often as needed. Together, we will navigate these difficult challenges with unwavering resilience and dedication to our children's future. We will also continue to advocate tirelessly to protect families and always uphold the dignity of every single person in our community. I want to turn our attention now, board members, to something that I'm very excited to share with you regarding a topic that is really important for this board and to all of us who work for the school district, and that is how are students doing academically and in well-being. I want to announce that emerging results from the state testing are really showing some promising outcomes. And I want to bring a little bit of those highlights for you today. You're working on showing the scores. Well, actually, I'll start with the end while they get this up. I want to thank all of the work of our great teachers, our great leaders, all the support staff that are making these results happen. These results do not happen in isolation or in silos, but rather when all of us as a community come together to really focus on the things that we know matters. So here we go. The first slide The first slide you'll notice is the 4-year cohort results for 6th grade students in English language arts or reading. You can observe their growth here in learning from the first test taken after the global pandemic to present day. Next, I want to highlight the significant growth in 4th grade, where we observed a 12% increase in students meeting or exceeding expectations in English language arts. And particularly, you'll notice that many of the different groups of students are continuing to trend in the right direction. Now we're going to move on to mathematics. Here is another view of longitudinal data for 6th grade. And as you can see, there have been some fluctuations in meeting standards, but we are continuing to see growth, particularly in 6th grade, where we know that our elementary leaders, side by side with their teachers, have implemented the small test of change that you've heard us speak to, using our results-based facilitation and results-based leadership program. I want to showcase our progress. This is our 6th grade, broken by ethnicity groups as well. Another view from the longitudinal data that shows again the trends from 23 to 25. And you'll notice that there still continues to be some gaps, but everybody's trending up. And thanks again to the 6th grade team for doing that incredible work together. At a future meeting, we will bring you some of the information that will inform you on how we want to continue to replicate the best practices that got us these results. And I want to showcase the progress in 7th grade, where junior high leaders also conducted a small test of change. Again, we are very excited about these results. They're a testament to the fact that when we all work together, great outcomes happen. And as leaders, we always want to stand on our results. We do plan to extend our small test of change efforts to literacy next year, because this year we focus on mathematics from K to 12th grade. And we'll bring a group of principals to our next meeting, August 5th, where they will report to you some of the learnings from these efforts as well. So you can look forward to that in an upcoming meeting. Now I'm going to turn to the board's, I know that there was a request for me to provide an update on the board's priorities and the validation of the board priorities. I have met with staff members from UCSB to discuss the survey, as was discussed in our last meeting, and some of the engagement efforts that we can take aimed at reaching diverse opportunities with Santa Barbara Unified. Currently, they are working on a proposal that they will bring to us for our review. In parallel to this outreach, I want you to know that I'm also exploring the possibility of conducting a strategic plan that will encompass the work outlined in our LCAP, our SPSAs, connected back to the board priorities, and really take stock of what we're doing so that we can create a cohesive, coherent strategic plan that can be beyond 1 year, but really work that can expand 3 to 5 years. I plan to present these options to the board at our next meeting. And next week, we will also have a Leadership Institute scheduled for all our principals and top management leaders, where our entire management team and I will be sharing this project, as well as our results, and continue to create some of the performance metrics that you have been asking for. And in relationship to that, we're also looking at a way that we can work towards creating a data dashboard that has also been requested as part of some of the work that this board would like to see us develop. I want to also share that as we analyze data, as we create strategic plans, as we think about priorities, we want to remember that each data point, each plan we make, each activity that we commit to always represents the real life of an individual student or a number of individual students. Every student comes to us with a different set of strengths and areas for growth. Finding a personalized approach for each student can be challenging. However, this is being accomplished every day in our classrooms in ways that we may not ever really see or be able to hear about in a board meeting like this one. I want to share with you a standout success story that involves a student who initially came to school with no interest in reading, but now has progressed to writing her own book. This transformation took time, took collaboration and efforts from many people at her school over a couple of years, but it is truly inspiring to witness it. Here's a short video showcasing the efforts of the school that the school staff has made to make this achievement possible.
I just want to know, how did this come to be that this student is writing this book?
I met Delilah when she was in first grade, and like many students, the transition from loving to be read aloud to and gaining that independence to read on their own was a struggle.
You are the author of this book. Can you tell me about it?
It's Trick or Treat, or I forgot the title. We go trick or treating because Elephant doesn't like trick or treating because he thinks it's scary and he doesn't know what's going to happen.
What happens with the reading rope, as everyone who works with our children knows, is that they're learning the phonics, the foundational skills, but at the same time, the reading brain in terms of the appreciation of how stories work, it needs to be nourished. And I think that's part of the work that we did together by allowing her to pick the books that she was interested in,
Okay.
gaining the confidence to read on her own, and feeling now that she doesn't have to read the whole book perfectly.
First, I had trouble reading, but then Miss Robertson showed me Piggy and Elephant books and Pigeon and Duckman books, and I started to like them, and it was much more easier to read.
When we talk about a student understanding story structure, which is a huge part of our curriculum, they start in kindergarten with understanding how books work, how there's a problem in a story that the main character has to solve. What did the character do in particular? She absorbed all of that. I did not teach her that.
Tell us about, as an author, what are you doing when you're writing your book? What are you thinking about?
More pictures, more words I should add, and more color.
Her confidence in reading has come both from continuing with her classroom teachers and the support there on the foundational skills and the love of reading. The engagement with more challenging texts with confidence is part of the growth of a reader that really is just as important as them being able to sound out words. Do you want to tell us anything else about reading or writing your book?
It's very interesting. It's very interesting because I find a lot of books that are interesting and I just want to read them.
I want to thank Sandy Robertson is the instructional coach at Summer Community Academy. I happened to go to school and she just came up to me. She's like, I have to tell you about this student. You really have to meet her. And I said, let's do it. Let's start our story together. And I want to thank the principal, the government also for helping to set up the video and to really have the conversation about the things that are happening every day. They're pretty, some of the results that you're seeing. And I was kind of reading my third grade, we saw the results for third, but we're still bringing up students, as you know, who have had some gaps in learning lots in over the years. So I'm really proud of all our teachers, all our leaders, coaches, and everyone that's involved in making sure that our students really master the skill of reading, which we know is the end point of every other subject in their schools. So I want to close out my superintendent report by introducing Dr. Sonia Wilson. As we approach the start of the new school year, we're excited to welcome the employees and congratulate those who are moving into new roles. One of those individuals is Dr. Sonia Wilson, who has agreed to take on the position of Assistant Superintendent of Educational Service. Dr. Wilson previously served as our Executive Director of Secondary Education for the past 2 years, where she does an excellent job leading that part of our school district. Today, she's joined by her family in the back here, and we're so proud to meet them and to know she has such an amazing support system. Dr. Wilson, please say a few words to the board. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Escobedo, members of the Board, Superintendent Maldonado, colleagues, and guests. It's with deep gratitude and humility that I stand before you today as the Superintendent of Educational Services. First, I want to thank my family, my husband, Tim, children, Andrew, Matthew, Sophia, and Xander, my dad, Refugio, his partner, Mom, Kathy, Sister Barbara, and my brother, Refugio. Your love, encouragement, and steady belief in me have made every step of the journey possible. Today, we are also celebrating my dad's 82nd birthday. This year marked my 31st year in education, a journey that had humble beginnings in the rural town of Lindsay, in the central San Joaquin Valley, where my family was raised and where my symptomatic in raising our own children. When I started my teaching career, my uncle Armando was serving on a local board of education, a position he held for over 10 years. And he was also the local doctor. And he approved my first teaching position. And I still remember standing in his shop before I started my school year that year. And he told me, yeah, this is an important work that you're doing. The students need you. They need the best of you. Do everything you can to serve them well. That message has guided me ever since. In those early years, I had the privilege of teaching cousins, siblings, friends of the family, neighbors, people I knew well, and some that were connected to my family and still are. And that closeness taught me the value of community and the importance of building strong relationships with students and families. Throughout my career, I've worked to bring that same sense of connection to every district I've served, driving to create schools and communities that feel like family. As I moved into administration, starting in Lindsay and continuing in the districts I've served since, I focused on transforming schools, particularly for our most vulnerable students. I've worked to build stronger systems that support rigorous, relevant, and inclusive learning. 7 years ago, my family moved to Southern California, and we left behind a familiar place and familiar people. And I carried with me the same vision that schools can and should be places where students thrive academically, emotionally, and socially. Now, as the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services for the Santa Barbara Unified School District, my focus remains clear: to continue improving student outcomes in both academics and well-being. I will continue to build a robust and responsive multi-tiered system of support, strengthen our professional learning structures, enhance how we monitor and respond to student progress, lead the implementation of the instructional framework, and support the continued rollout of our annual master plan. I'm truly honored to be joining this leadership team with our board that's deeply committed to equity and excellence. I'm excited for the work ahead and grateful for the opportunity to serve our students, staff, and families. Thank you for the opportunity to do this important work together.
I just want to also point out that she'll speak at the next meeting, but I also want to welcome Dr. Marianne Hugh to our team. She is our Executive Director of Secondary Education, and of course, Mr. Deshitus for me. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we will go to public comments that are not on today's agenda. Mr. Banning.
Yes, we have several. Brianna Serrato, followed by Rich Lashua, followed by Mary Temple. There'll be a couple more after that as well.
Hello, my name is Brianna Serrato, pronouns she, her, Aya. I'm here to give the parent advocate perspective on the continued failings of the district in serving its students with disabilities. Before I jump into that one, I just wanted to point out on the CASP scores that were just highlighted, all of those subgroups were there except for students with disabilities, which is really interesting that was omitted, seeing as how we've heard report after report after report over the years of how those students are the ones that are continually failing and not meeting standards and yet are continually being pushed forward. So yay that the other students are progressing, but really interesting that was omitted from that report. All right, so in this instance, firstly, in regards to ESY, Extended School Year, aka summer school for students with IEPs that need intensive support to combat summer slide. I first met Steve Venz and Dr. Beal via Zoom for the LCAP Parent Advisory meeting about 3 years ago. At that time, my family was new to the district and I was excited to learn how they were serving all students. In the meeting, Steve and Stanley, the then director of elementary schools, were so excited to tell us about the new summer program, SOL, Summer of Learning, and how equitable it was. There were twinkles in their eyes with how proud they were of how the students would be provided with a full-day program with wonderful enrichment opportunities, including field trips in the afternoons after the instructional time in the morning. That is until I asked if the kids at ESY, aka the kids with disabilities, would also be receiving that enrichment. And the light bulbs went off that they completely left out a whole student group in their quote-unquote equity initiative. My son attended Summer of Learning that summer and had a wonderful time in the afternoons with the AOK program. Unfortunately, he really struggled with the morning sessions as he is autistic and transitions, especially morning ones, are a big trigger. He thankfully had the most amazing, empathetic teacher who understood his sensory needs and worked with us to ease into those transitions. Unfortunately, things got worse after another teacher, it turned out to be the SPED teacher for Franklin, berated me in front of my then 7-year-old in the classroom while his teacher was there about how he didn't belong at this program, it should be an ESY. How this was an accelerated academic program and he was not only taking a spot away from another student, but was taking away from the education of the students there. Yes, this incident was reported and no follow-up was done. The next year, I advocated at the district level for ESY to also have the full day options to attend AOK afterwards.
20 seconds.
Most of this work was with Dr. Carla Curry. Basically, I advocated all for the second year. And towards the end of the year, Carla said that yes, it was going to happen. And then it turns out that no, it wasn't going to happen because they didn't have the funding or the paraeducator staffing in order to offer it to all. And so if they couldn't offer it to all of the students in ESY, they couldn't offer it to any of them. And yes, there's the irony of how they were already excluding for a second year in a row those students. This year, Tommy was able to attend ESY and the full day program. However, there was massive miscommunication between the AOK program and the staff where AOK kept telling me that no, he wasn't on the roster. And I heard I was the only family that was being told that. On top of that, they didn't think about the timing as regards the enrichment of they had three wonderful field trips that were during the ESY portion of the day. And so my son was the only one that could go to the movie theater with the AOK program because they also didn't think to tell the ESY staff about it. So it was only because they gave me the permission slip. And at that point, they were like, oh, wait, that's during instructional time. So again, please do better for the students with disabilities.
Dr. Molinado, can we have someone from staff follow up?
Comments.
Ms. Serrato, please.
Yes, we will have Ms. Edison meet with you. And I know that you have met with Dr. Curry and Ms. Alvarado, but Ms. Edison will be able to meet with you right now.
Ghosted.
Ms. Serrato, we're going to follow up. I'll make sure of it. Dr. Molinado and I and the cabinet will work together.
Next comments are Rich Lashua, followed by Mary Temple and Maddie Bordowski.
Good evening. You remember me from June of 2016 as one of many concerned citizens urging the board to keep Karen Dutton as the music teacher at Santa Barbara Junior High because she was an excellent teacher and the school needs a music program. Or perhaps May of 2018 when we rallied to keep Stephen Hughes at La Colina because he's an excellent teacher and the school needs a music program. Or when I was here in April of 2024 to save the instrumental and vocal music programs at Santa Barbara Junior High because Brent Larson and Mary LaFave are excellent teachers and the school needs music programs. June of 2024, I was here asking that Alyssa Walsh keep her theater class at La Cooper Junior High because she's an excellent teacher and the school needs a theater program. If none of this is ringing any bells, you may recall my address last month where I urged the board to rescind the RIF for Kevin Christensen because he'd been doing an excellent job salvaging a music program at Santa Barbara Junior High, but was getting job offers elsewhere while Santa Barbara Unified wondered if it could afford to keep him. He's gone now. That's public rallies to save performing arts teachers 7 times in the last 9 years, affecting 3 of our 4 junior high schools. One difficult aspect of public education is the long game. We can get so buried in immediate crises that it's easy to think we can't change the system. But almost 20 years ago, we did change the system and not for the better. In a temporary cost-saving move, the 7th period was eliminated from the junior high contract, and we all still pay the price. Secondary teachers went from 2 prep periods to 1, electives programs have dwindled, and most importantly, kids' academic performance and mental health have yet to recover. Music activates the same parts of the brain that facilitate learning additional languages, and yet our EML kids are effectively prohibited from taking music. A theater performance is English comprehension at the highest levels, and only our non-categorical students can take it with relative ease. Arts, foreign language, woodshop, leadership, and journalism are just some of the classes that provide the biggest boost for social skills, confidence building, resilience, responsibility, and critical thinking. We are at a junction in the long game tonight. Most of the world moved on, but we are near the halfway point of the shockwave our education system has felt from COVID. Kids who were in kindergarten when the pandemic hit are starting 6th grade next month. Across the country, educators report this subgeneration still needs the most help with social skills, confidence, resilience, responsibility, and critical thinking.
25 seconds.
We have one more school year to change the system to accommodate these kids and their unique needs for the second half of their public education. Or we can continue to cut exactly what they need the most. It's time for the district to fund a 7th period. It's time for the union to write a 2nd prep period back into the schedule so these crucial classes can help kids thrive. Clock's ticking. Let's go teach the world.
Thank you. Next comment, Mary Temple, Maggie Bordowski, and York Shingle.
Hello, I'm Mary Temple. I'm the proud Nana to 2 kids who attended Roosevelt last school year. I want to know what the school district's long-term goal is for especially my grandson. For the last 3 years, he's been reading at a TK to K level. Last year, he was in 3rd grade. He was just promoted to 4th grade. Many of you people on the board approved that in spite of the objections of my daughter and also his special ed teacher. His special ed teacher took him over in March. But for some reason, some of you feel, having never worked directly with my grandson, that your opinion is much more important than his parents or his special ed teacher, who is able in that short time from March to June to raise Tommy's level of reading up to just kindergarten, headed towards 1st. His mom spoke to his gen ed and his new special ed teachers in May of 2025. They both verbalized to her that moving to a new school and repeating 3rd was a great plan for him. It would avoid the risk, the concern listed in your reasons why repetition shouldn't happen, that it would be harmful for his psyche. By moving to a new school with new kids, nobody would know but Tommy. And that would preserve his emotional well-being. But instead, the people that don't know him decided in their great wisdom that it would be better to move him to community academy, put him in 4th grade, give it 2 to 3 weeks, see if he's failing, and then move him back to 3rd grade. At which point, probably the only option would be community academy, and all the kids would know that Tommy got put back a year. So I just don't understand any of the reasoning behind this. My granddaughter, on the other hand, had an IEP in January that said she should be in counseling. It was ignored for 2 months. When my daughter tried to find out why her 12-year-old was not in counseling because of all the things that were great big warning signs, she was told that the new counselor who was on the school premises, it was too late to let her take up her case because she was booked. Is SBSD's long-term plan for my grandson to have him graduate high school illiterate? Why is concern over someone's ego due to child being retained more important than child's academic success?
Your time is up.
Why are kids experiencing mental health concerns ignored? Please do better for all of the children. That's your job.
Thank you. Maggie Bordowski, followed by York Shingle.
Good evening, board and cabinet. Madeline Bordowski, teacher, Harding University Partnership School. I want to start by thanking you for the messaging you put out today about how the district is preparing to support our immigrant families and letting us know the steps you have taken so far to prepare. As we know, the federal immigration situation has unfortunately showed up at our front doors. And while we want to believe it will never reach the doors of our schools, we have to prepare like it will. I read through your email today and have a few more things I would like for you to consider. Our immigrant families are a big part of our school communities, and their presence and voices are so valued. We need to make sure that their participation is made possible, even if they don't feel like they can come to campus safely for events such as back to school night, parent-teacher conferences, and award celebrations. How can the district help facilitate that every site can include all of their families? Can we live stream these events? Do we have the tools and infrastructure necessary to do that? Next, how do we ensure families can get students to and from school safely? There may be days when families don't feel safe walking or transporting their students to campus. How can we promote walking groups or carpools or other options to make sure that students are still able to get to school? With that, we also know that attendance may be an issue. I know that if a student gets to a certain number of absences, the family gets a letter from the DA, and even in the best of times, that is stressful. I cannot imagine the stress that it would cause now. What can we do to help prevent this unnecessary stress? Is there an option for learning at home that is not making every teacher teach hybrid, but possibly something like independent study? I would also like for us to further consider how we can work smarter with our local organizers. There's a lot of good happening in our community, and we do not need to recreate the wheel. For example, I know Casa de la Raza has been passing out binders with resources, phone numbers, and forms to help families prepare for the worst case scenario. Can we work with them to make sure our families have access to these binders if they need them? Can family liaisons request them to have on hand? Finally, what do we do if ICE shows up at our schools and doesn't follow the protocols that we have in place? We need clear guidance for this situation, as we have seen no proof that these agents will follow our protocols. I think it is fair to predict that they would say that their rules override ours, as they are the federal government and we're just a local school district. What are sites supposed to do then? We have to have a plan. Thank you for your consideration. I look forward to working with you to ensure that all of our immigrant families are supported this year.
Thank you. York Shingle?
Good evening, Board, Superintendent, and Cabinet. Welcome, Mr. Vasquez, to the Board. And I'm York Shingle. And for the first time, I'm addressing you as the Santa Barbara Teacher Association President. Feels pretty good. Thank you. First and foremost, as educators who are part of SBTA, we are committed to the safety and stability of all students, regardless of immigration status. We condemn recent ICE actions in our community. I had a really great conversation today with Dr. Maldonado, Dr. Becchio, and fellow educator and SBTA member Allison Mendoza this morning about the need for more support and guidance on how we support our teachers and students during these heightened actions. I look forward to working together to keep our students, families, and teachers safe, especially given the uncertainty of how ICE and other emboldened community members are acting. Every site is a center for learning, and all these continued actions become a distraction that keep us from educating our students and keeping our community safe. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. We have another comment on item E1.
Thank you. With that, I'll turn it back to the board for any board comments and correspondence. Anyone? Ms. Caffrey, do you have any board comments or correspondence?
Not today.
Okay. And with that, I will just say, welcome to Dr. Wilson in your new role. I'm very excited about your addition and to all of our new additions to the team. I look forward to working with you for this upcoming school year. And welcome to our new student school board member. Very excited to work with you and get to know what you're passionate about and see how we can elevate your voice on this board. Last comment is we're going to continue working together as a team as a school district with our union leadership, with our site leadership to protect our students and our families and our staff in what are really troubling times. Times that if we followed the news and saw what happened in Carpinteria and the state-sponsored violence is essentially what that was. And I hear you, Ms. Bordowski, about there is no indication that federal ICE agents would follow our protocols. And it's a discussion that we are going to continue to have as a leadership team, as a board, to talk about what happens in those situations. And we actually have a meeting tomorrow to talk about just that. And so we are going to continue to think about every iteration possible and the unthinkable oftentimes. And we're going to plan for what we can plan for. And we're also going to provide ourselves with flexibility to try and have resources and people in place to respond to the things that we can't even imagine. So thank you for coming out and speaking. Thank you for your partnership. And thank you for thinking of our students and families. And thank you, Dr. Maldonado, for leading the charge on this over the summer. Yes.
Comments for Ms. Brodowski. We do not send letters from the district attorney's office for chronic absenteeism. So the more that you guys can help us communicate that is not a practice of Santa Barbara Unified. We have an excellent district attorney that has been working with us. And we will continue to look for the options for students. Just want to make sure that I make that clear because I know it's a worry on everybody's. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Serrano, if you could just come up to the podium and clarify what you had just mentioned. Just briefly, please.
I believe the language in those letters still reference that chronic absenteeism can include being referred to the DA's office. So there's wording with it that makes it very scary to receive those letters.
I will make sure that we follow up with a written communication to everyone. Ms. Edison and I will work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we will close out D9 and we will move to our first item of the day, E1, Instructional Framework Report. We have Dr. Wilson coming up to the podium. Welcome.
Thank you. And good evening again. I'm excited to be providing the board an update on our Santa Barbara Unified Instructional Framework. I'm joined this evening by Dr. Marianne Hugh, our new Executive Director of Secondary Education, as well as Mrs. Allison Quijano, our new principal at Adams Elementary and former Secondary Instructional Support Specialist. This is a visual that you're familiar with that shows how we focus our work, linking initiatives across our departments. I'd like to call your attention to the center of this circle, and at the center you'll see what we call the instructional core. And that's the triangle that shows the intersection of students, teachers, standards, and content. Students, teachers, and strong instruction are at the center of our work as a district. And they're also where the instructional framework lives. Having an instructional framework is an important milestone for us as a district. It not only establishes a vision for high-quality instruction for all students, but it sets expectations and builds alignment within our whole system so that sites can transform student learning in order to achieve our site and district goals. It also brings alignment to some important initiatives and systems that we already have in place and are working to strengthen right now, including professional learning, PLCs, curriculum implementation, site walkthroughs. In other words, the instructional framework sets us up for a more aligned plan or path for improving our student outcomes. You can see here that the instructional framework has been under development for 3 years. It began in 2023 with our high-quality Tier 1 instruction roadmap, progressed to 2024, which was the outline of specific practices within our ABCs. And then culminating this year in the spring with our level 3 teacher and student actions.
Good evening, board members. Really proud to be here and share this work with you, as it's something that I've been working on for these last 3 years as it's been under development, and excited to carry forward in my new role at Adams. I just want to share a little bit more about each sort of layer of the instructional framework and how they're meant to work together and really guide our work. So this first layer, we'll call it level 1, is essentially these 3 categories that are aligned to our values, our beliefs, the things that are important to us as a school district. And they're those big, broad categories of academics, belonging, and collaboration. No, I always hit the wrong button. The next layer, which was that second piece that we worked on, really describes specific practices under each one of those big, broad categories. And these practices should carry across all content areas, all grade levels, should be applicable in any classroom in our school district. These also align with the 5 key practices for effective instruction for emergent multilingual students, which you've heard some about as we presented our master plan for emergent multilingual students. And those are included in this instructional framework as well. The third layer, and the one that is the most specific, is the one that was just developed last year. And these are the teacher and student actions under each one of these practices. So these explain in detail what these practices look like in our classrooms day to day. They can include specific look-fors as we are conducting those learning walks in each of our classrooms. And they're really examples of what we aspire to enact and observe in each one of our classrooms. In many classrooms, many of these actions are in place, and there are others that we have not seen as much of. And so this document is both describing what we do and how we do it, but it is also aspirational, right? It's moving us forward and how we can continue to be even better to serve our students more effectively. And then lastly, and I don't know if we're able to click on the link that's linked there or not, but we did develop a website that's available to all staff. The video is just sort of like a screen recording of what the website looks like, but hopefully you all have access to it. Included in the website are clickable links for all of the terms that are in bold on the instructional framework. So I'm not sure if you have copies in front of you or not, but you can see here, it includes an explanation of the overall framework. At the top, you'll see a page for glossary and resources. And so as teachers and administrators and staff are learning about the instructional framework, they can go to this website if they're not sure what one of these terms means, or if they'd like to see examples of what that looks like. And the nice thing about having this website is that it's easily updatable, right? So as we use this more, we can add more resources. We could add video examples. We can add, we've talked about all different possibilities with this website. So that's why we decided to go with the website for that sort of glossary resource and overview. There is also a separate page for the 5 key practices for emergent multilingual learners.
Good evening, board members. I'm very excited to be joining the team and the Santa Barbara Unified Community. So collaboration was a very big part of the process for developing our instructional framework, including a continuous cycle of input and feedback from across the system. Instructional Council is a committee that is required by SBTA contract, and this was a group that we came back to often to provide input and feedback to the development of the instructional framework. And their role as we move into 25, 26 and beyond will be to continue to provide that input and feedback as we go through our launch and implementation into year 2 and year 3. This is an example of some of the feedback that we received from across our system, from our instructional council, from our site leaders, from our district professional learning communities. And you'll see here that a lot of the feedback was really intended to help us increase our communication, our coherence, and consistency across our system. We also do that by looking through the lens of our multi-tiered systems of support. This is the way that we provide that consistency and ensure inclusive, data-driven, and aligned implementation across our system, across our schools, in support of all students. This is a highly collaborative process to make sure that we are all looking at data together as we are going through those steps of implementation. We also know that, as with any initiative or framework, it will take some time to really spread its reach across our system and embed itself into all aspects of our practices. And so you can see here that starting with the spring and into the summer, we've really started our awareness campaign with our various groups. That will continue next week with our Summer Leadership Institute into August with our induction, our new stuff orientations, and August professional learning. In year one, it will be largely about beginning those implementation and those integration steps across our systems with our professional learning and our instructional practices, such as learning walks, instructional council meetings, et cetera, as we build that awareness. And then in years 2 and 3, we will continue to refine and spread and deepen that work, and always with a cycle of inquiry and data-driven practices as we look to refine those practices and monitor that progress. Also, with our progress monitoring here, just looking through the various ways that it will hit in different parts of our system, we'll be making sure that our instructional framework is embedded within our professional learning and that we have that continuous feedback loop from our educators. And it will be embedded within our learning walks and progress monitoring, as well as when we are looking at our student outcomes through SIPSAs and goal setting, as well as with our LCAP data and STAR, IXL, and CASP data. To conclude, we want to honor and acknowledge the contributors to the development of the instructional framework. You see listed here the executive committee, as well as additional groups, councils, committees that contributed in large part to the development process. So we want to thank them and also open it for any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment for this item?
One public comment, Brianna Serrato.
Hi again. Just wanted to start off again congratulating Dr. Wilson and also Ms. Quijano, and welcome Ms. Hugh and the other new admin person. And so this is wonderful. This is great. I enjoyed looking at this yesterday and then again digging in deeper today. And what really stood out to me is that on level 2 for the practices, that it also aligns with the 5 practices of effective instruction for emergent multilingual learners, the EMLs. And what really stood out in that regard, though, is that it talks about, on the memo portion, that these practices are expected to be implemented consistently at every grade level and in all content areas, ensuring a cohesive and equitable learning experience for all students. Additionally, the level 2 practices are aligned with the district's for the practice for EMLs, reinforcing strategies that support language development and academic success for EMLs across disciplines. However, and then later it talks about how the 5 key practices are designed to help educators work collaboratively to meet the academic, linguistic, and socio-emotional needs of EMLs, ensuring equitable and inclusive learning environments. So my question is, when is the district going to be doing this for the children with disabilities? Since they also have, many of them have the aptitude and the cognitive ability. However, they aren't always presented that way. So it's amazing that the district's been working on this over the last couple of years for EMLs. And when is it going to happen then for the students with disabilities? And also, how are students with disabilities being factored in for that inclusivity and that equity with this new framework?
Thank you. Are there any other public comments for this item? Okay. With that, we'll turn it back to the board for questions. Mr. Banning.
I just want to be clear about the website that you showed us. Is that will that be a public facing website, or is that in like an intranet type of resource?
So the current website is an internal facing document, and currently all of those practices, the teacher and student actions, those are meant to be teachers and staff facing. One additional consideration is that we may develop a family facing document or even a student facing document, in which case, of course, we would want those to be, publicly available. But for right now, the website is just meant for teachers and staff.
And I did notice that in our version of the presentation, the link is live for us to see that. Will that remain that way for a while?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Dr. B.
I have questions, but it will also probably go into the comment area too, because it would be odd to ask a question and not to follow up with a comment. So I can wait, and if Board Member Caffrey has very specific questions, and I can maybe follow that. I don't know. It depends on how many people have questions.
Why don't you give it a shot, and then just with the understanding that if you have any sort of feedback or direction, that you provide that in the comment section as well, if it's part of your comments.
Okay. So thank you for that presentation. I know there's been a lot of work in setting up this framework, and the instructional council is really working to work to bring up our literacy rates and that's the type of teaching. So I have mentioned at earlier board meetings about how extensive involved the data. And as a board member, we certainly don't want as separate board members to have different targets. So I was very curious when I was looking at this document. There's a lot of discussion about the framework that's being set up, how people are going to work together, but there are not specific targets that are mentioned. They may be mentioned in the meetings, and I'm interested to hear about this possibility of the outward-facing framework. So I guess if I'm going to put this as a question, two of the factors for literacy improvement that are very strong and confirmed by many schools that have had successful literacy improvement in our students is teacher training and parent involvement. So what is the plan for teacher training to get that percentage up? Is there a plan for that? Because it's not mentioned in this instructional document.
Yeah, so specific plans for professional learning, whether it's related to literacy or whether it's related to all of our professional learning across the year in both elementary and secondary. So those are separate plans that intersect with the instructional framework. So the instructional framework really helps us think of the practices or the descriptors of teacher behavior or student behavior that we want to aspire to build professional learning to meet that, to support teachers in the development to get to that level. And so the professional learning plan is actually separate and would be separate then from the instructional framework itself.
Okay, I understand that. So is the instructional framework, is it a guideline for expectations of, because we talk about collaboration, we talk about what we're looking for as students. I just don't see how it can be separate from what actually has to be done to get everybody to that point. So I guess maybe I get a little confused because we are setting priorities for, we're still validating literacy and math. And I'm curious about how this instructional council is going to help strengthen these priorities or get to what we want to get to, the priorities, improving.
Yeah. So let me give you just a quick example of how we talk about the intersection between professional learning and then share more about the priorities and goals specifically. So an example is we have a team that's working currently on our professional learning plan based on feedback we received from the SBTA presentation. We recognize the need to enhance our structures, specifically at the secondary level, but also to build a TK-12 professional learning plan. And the first part of that work was looking at what our common focus areas for professional learning would be this year, which would be integrated ELD and PLCs. And all of that feedback actually came from the teacher surveys that were administered during the year and also at the end of the year. So we could see where teachers wanted to focus, and they could recognize that those were two critical areas for being able to move the results for students. Now, as we started to develop that plan, what we did was we reviewed the instructional framework, and we looked specifically for where integrated ELD and professional learning communities were called out here and what those descriptors were, so that then we could design the professional learning around those descriptors, because that's what we want, the behaviors of the teachers, their instruction, how they're interacting with students and engaging them in the learning. That's what we want the professional learning to be focused on. And so in the plans that we're developing, all the plans, we will do that work to find those intersections with the instructional framework and also engage our principals in that work as well, so that they can see the overlap in terms of what they're focusing on and how it lands here. So these consistent expectations will be shared continuously throughout the system.
Okay. And I think any more discussion on this really goes into a comment area. Maybe this is not a part of this instructional plan, but we have the reading screener that's going to be in the fall. The plan was great, but it is actually so general, right? Because it's covering all students, all grades. So there is nothing specific. So I think that's the hard part about looking at this plan. In this instructional plan, and maybe in the intranet portion, is there specific plans for students who are going to be identified as having reading difficulties? Now, I did ask this question, got sort of an answer, and it talked about students who are identified with an IEP of having reading difficulties. That can be incredibly difficult for families to pursue, especially with dyslexia. So now we're going to have a screener, which is within the system, is going to identify students with reading difficulties, maybe dyslexia, maybe other. So does this instructional plan have something in place to manage what information we get pretty immediately?
Yeah. So one of the descriptors that I see in our academic section is provide appropriate scaffolding and extensions designed with learning variability in mind. So if we know that that is really the expectation, the vision of what we want to have infused in our instruction, and then we use the M-Class assessment to determine where our students currently, then the work is to build professional learning and or help support teachers developing their practices so that they can really attend to that learner variability that they're going to see in the M-Class assessment, and that they also see currently in the assessments that they're administering. And so one of the important things to note about the M-Class is there are activities and lessons and resources that are built in to the platform. So it does provide even scaffolding for teachers to be able to respond to the learner variability that's going to be demonstrated in those results.
Thank you. So I think I'm starting to understand that the instructional council, along with this document, is really try to identify gaps in instruction and try to strengthen that system. Now, what we want to do in terms of very specific with training professional is kind of outside. It's not part of that plan because it doesn't belong in the plan, but I'll get to the comment section and maybe want to say something about where I think this intersection could happen.
Thank you. Other questions? Ms. Caffrey, do you have any questions?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So my first question is basically just echoing what Ms. Serrato asked, and that is, are there specific look-fors for students with special needs? Is that part of the framework?
So, Ms. Caffrey, 1 second before we answer that question, I believe you have to turn up the volume on your computer.
Can you hear me?
A little bit better.
Hello? Can you hear me now? I'm at top volume.
Yeah.
Are you able to bring your microphone closer to your face? Maybe if you're on a computer screen, bring it a little closer, maybe.
Here, I'll just turn off my audio so that, can you hear me better?
No, we can still hear you. So we can carry on with the meeting. Maybe we can try and figure it out as we go. But we can
Okay.
still hear you. It's just a little bit faint.
Shall I type it in instead? Would that be preferable?
Ms. Quijano got the question, so
Okay.
she will answer now. Thank you, Ms. Caffrey.
Yes, so I believe the question was, are there specific descriptors or specific practices that are called out for students with disabilities, students who have IEPs in the same way that the practices for students, for emergent multilingual students are called out? So I do want to acknowledge that they're not called out specifically in that same way. However, as we were developing the both the practices in that sort of level 2, and then even more so with the level 3, the teacher and student actions. As we were developing those, we were cross-referencing these practices with a lot of the other good work that our school district has done around universal design for learning, around multi-tiered systems of support. So for example, the bullet point that Sonia mentioned about the extensions and scaffolding with learner variability in mind. That language comes directly from Universal Design for Learning. There are also other bullet points that speak to ensuring cognitively demanding tasks, right? This is something that we have to help all of our staff and all of our teachers understand, that all students are deserving of cognitively demanding tasks. Right? And what does that look like for different types of students in different settings and different classrooms? So I think part of what this instructional framework will allow us to do is to really learn together as a staff to say, what does it mean? What would it look like to provide cognitively demanding tasks for every single one of our students? So although it's not called out specifically, these are ones that are important for students with IEPs. I could make the case that every single one of these is absolutely essential for all students, including and especially students who have IEPs, if that makes sense. There may be more work that needs to be done, and maybe that can be some additional work, as we talked about with developing, the teacher-facing document. Perhaps there is another companion document that we work with our student services partners to develop for students with disabilities specifically. But if I'm approaching this with my staff, all means all. Applies to everybody.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ms. Caffrey.
And may I ask, this framework, is it broad across all types of teachers, or is there specific guidance, say, for science or math, or depending on the specialty of what teachers are teaching?
That's a great question. And similarly to as Mrs. Quijano shared, the considerations that were made during the development of the instructional framework were to be inclusive of languages and practices for all students. And that would be the same for all teachers. So we wanted to have a broad set of practices that could be considered for science, math. So in another example I'll share of a descriptor is build disciplinary language for all students through modeling routines and intentional instruction. That disciplinary language really refers to any of the disciplines, and teachers can find really their discipline in and their work in this descriptor and how they can support students to build that capacity.
And I just have one final question. Thank you very much for clarifying this. It's very helpful. So after you have instituted this, then do you mind just reiterating how we continue to update it over time and integrate what we learn as we implement framework?
Yeah, so that implementation data and information, sometimes that implementation data will be formal, right? We will do teacher surveys, but there'll also be informal information that will come to us either through principal implementation or from the instructional council. And so that feedback we will track across the year. And we will look at what updates might need to be made to the instructional framework, what gaps we currently have, and just what practices may need to be modified or language changed to be potentially more inclusive of students and teachers. So this is really that first year launch to set those expectations, create that vision and that alignment across the system, and then to monitor the implementation, gather that feedback, and let instructional council really help provide that lens for any adjustments and recommendations for changes in future years.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? What about comments? Dr. Beal, hit it up.
Okay, so these are my comments. We have been talking about our board aligned, district aligned, teacher, all of our goals being aligned, LCAP, and to not have different goals, to have the same goals. And we talk about data, and we talk about having targets. And so I like the idea of this instructional council. I know it's been there for a while, but it seems like it's really starting to focus. So I'm really happy to hear that. Along with that is there does need to be some very goal-oriented work. So, for example, we have local school districts that are doing well, smaller K through 6 with literacy. We have districts outside of our, in California, in the United States that are doing very well. And very clearly over the last 5 years, they've been identifying certain factors that are also extremely important. You can have every plan in the world. You can look at feedback and say, are we doing this well? Are we doing this poorly? But there has to be an intentionality to it. And the intentionality has to be like, what is going to get us to our goal? And so 2 of the big factors that were identified were basically teacher training. We have, I hate to say it, a disappointingly low percentage of our teachers trained in letters. And politically, for many years, there was a different way to teach students reading. I know that I learned actually phonetically. So at some point it switched, and we are trying to go back to a way that works for many students, not just students who are naturally going to adapt to reading well. And so I would, I'm bringing this up for a couple of reasons. Other than aligning goals, I feel that there is a need just with our financials to try to better focus our expenditures on what we're trying to accomplish in the school system. We also need to have that same sort of thinking going on with when we choose curriculum, when we, teacher training. How do we get to those goals? How do we support our students the best way? So I am curious. I have proposed several meetings ago that we consider having a student outcomes committee during our board prioritization meeting, in which York Shingle, who is not yet the SBTA president, talked about linking our students' accomplishments to real results, right? So that they just don't do well, but doing well in something has meaning. It advances them in reading, it advances them to college, whatever those results are going to be. We do need to have goals. So my feeling is we need to also have, I don't know how this works with instructional council being part of the teachers union. We also need to have a committee or a group that talks about what is important. We don't want to have 50 things and chase 50 things. We want to have several very concrete things, like we want 100% of our teachers trained in letters. We want our admin staff trained in letters. If literacy is our goal, this has been a huge lever, and we need to make that decision. And that informs professional development. That's where I think there's this intersection between instructional council and our prioritization. So, and then we have other areas, not just literacy. We have math, we have mental health. We have so many things that are not just, how are we meeting our students' needs with disabilities, with mental health? So I have talked in the past about having a board advisory group. It might be a long-term thing, short-term thing. So I'll bring it up again, where we say, these are the goals we want. And that way we're always really focused as a board and as a group when we make plans and we make decisions, that we are like, we're not going to look at other stuff that is not as important right now. We are going to focus our energy on this, but we have to decide what those are.
because I know we always use the word data and it's very unclear that the person next to me is speaking about the same thing that I'm speaking about. So really even considering having a group that talks about what those targets are, because I think we all can do with some clarity. So the other one was parent involvement. So not part of the instructional council, but it made me think about the fact that we're setting up the system. We're talking about potentially a dashboard. And I like that idea because parents need to know where their students are and not just get a letter that says your student is below standard. Come to us if you want help with that. We need to be like, we need to come to you and tell you how we can help you. Because we are the instruction, not we, these are the instructional experts. And a parent is going to say, okay, read the letter. It's not their forte, not necessarily. There needs to be more output in terms of helping families and parents get to their students to the goals they want to get to. And then I have concerns about the reading screener. I have concerns that we're going to identify a lot of students and then what? Really that there needs to be a structured plan with structured interventions, and we will learn on the job, but we need to have some structured interventions. And then the data. I've talked about the data. We got a little taste of the data. I'm hoping that the other grades look as good. I'd be super happy. But that that's part of the instructional council, that we're looking at the data and we're trying to look at what the instructional council is doing, and does the data match? Is it validating those practices that you have set up in the instructional council? I'm happy to hear about really tightening down on the PLCs, because we've heard from teachers that the PLCs are very useful. So in combination with professional development, I think we can get there. And so that's all I'll say. I always have a lot to say about this stuff, but I think that's enough for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from the board? Mr. Banning.
I have a few, and I think it's interesting to hear the questions and the comments from Trustee Beal, Trustee Caffrey. We just saw 15 pages. If we took out the title page and the other page and the question page, there's probably 10 pages of sparsely populated information about a process that must have taken thousands of human hours to talk through and get through, and to try and simplify the work that you're doing to a point that it can be represented in a 15-minute presentation to 5 non-experts in the field is in itself, I think, an incredible accomplishment, that you can seed the type of dialogue that we're having here. I'm not going to disagree with anything I'm hearing about the need for alignment, but what I'm really enjoying hearing from you is words like alignment to values and beliefs, practices, including MLs, teachers and student actions aspirationally aligned. The common word is alignment here. And I think of try and have a visualization of particles just shooting every direction at different speeds in the room, bouncing off walls and going everything. And every one of those could represent a really good idea in what we should do to make instruction better for kids. And the first step in getting that to be aligned is to make them go in the same direction. And then the next step is to look at how fast they're going and how much energy is going to this one versus this one. So alignment itself is one of the most complicated acts that we do as educators in a very non-specific kind of way to measure what our successes are. What this is as a framework, I want to make sure we're all hearing this. This is not an instructional plan. It is a framework. It's not a definition of specific goals. It's a framework for how we're going to do things. All of those things that it's not is very much still up in the air for us. We have to figure out the questions of what data do we want to look at, and not have a bunch of different things bouncing in different directions that mean different things, so that when we're looking at the data, it's something that we're all looking at. It has the same meaning to us, and it's aligned to values and all of those type of things that you were talking about. So I could go on and on. What I really want to do is say thank you for taking a system that is inherently chaotic. We talk about what great teachers we have. We talk about the excellent, dedicated people that are here, that are fighting to be able to live in this community and afford to do that, and yet they still come and they do that, and they do their jobs. And until they're all going in the same direction, aligned at the same way with the same emphasis, all of that expertise doesn't mean anything. So I just want to say to my colleagues on the board and to those of you out there, this work is absolutely critical. It's the kind of work that needs to be done. It's foundational. It's a framework. We need to move that into a reality. And something that might help us with that is as we start to look at how do we create strategic goals, strategic visions, and strategic plans that are about alignment. So I don't ever want to sit up here and listen to comments that I'm going, yeah, that's exactly right, Sunita, and that's exactly right, Celeste, without saying we have to be patient and make sure that we're using that to get us all going in the same direction. This document, when I first saw it and carefully looked at it last time, I was so impressed with how it was working toward that goal. It's not finished. It never will be. But thank you for giving us something that we can start to have the kind of conversations that we're having. This is really seminal, excellent work. Thank you.
Ditto.
Well, no.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Who wants to go next? Ms. Caffrey?
Thank you. Can you hear me
Yes,
faintly or better?
I can hear you the same, but we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I think basically I'd like to respond to what to build on basically what Trustee Banning and Beal are talking about in terms of alignment. So I think this framework is very helpful and this is really new to me. In terms of goals, that is where our governance meeting on August 16th, I think, is going to be a really useful meeting because the goals of our district and what we're hoping to achieve are really set by the board in, distilling what our community wants our kids to know and be able to do and our values. So I think that we are, I see a lot of alignment is happening and there's alignment in terms of what we expect our teachers, how we expect our teachers to teach. That's really what the framework is about. But in terms of what we want to accomplish as a district, that really is on the board. And I think we'll get a lot more clarity in that August governance meeting. I will also just say that there's a very interesting governance meeting that Long Beach Unified had. They're kind of, Long Beach Unified is the gold standard, I think, in terms of many things. But if we want to see what monitoring data looks like, a training on monitoring data, that is a useful one. So I think we have to separate. Goals are not really, I apologize, I'm not being as clear as normal, but goals are set by the board, not the instructional council. And then things like the framework and our plans all funnel from those goals. So I think we will get into that much more in our August governance meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Munoz, any comments? Okay. I will echo the comments of my colleagues and particularly Mr. Banning. I won't try to do it as eloquently, but thank you for all the work. And I think what is quite satisfying being on this board, I think 2.5 years now, is there's a lot more conversation. There was conversation about alignment when I first joined the board, but I think right now you're starting to sense that in many arenas in the district, at each of our school sites, in our committee meetings, our council meetings, on work efforts like this, is where you start to sense that things are coming together and that we are finding that alignment, that we are having a shared focus. We're not there yet. We have goals to set. We have metrics to decide on what they're going to be. We have potentially a strategic plan to develop. but there's something to say about that feeling of momentum, and it feels like we're developing that momentum, and this is one big piece of that. And I just want to thank you all for your leadership, for your hard work, for all those that were listed here. There's probably many more people that contributed. And to Mr. Banning's point, it's never done in developing. And so I think also that can be unsettling, but it's something that we need to be comfortable with, and it's actually a good thing. So with that, just a lot of gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you to Ms. Quijano for coming
Yes,
this
thank you.
evening. She starts her new journey. Thank you.
Yes, we're very excited. Oh, excuse me. We're going to close out E1 and we're going to move to E2, first reading of board bylaws in series 9000. I believe this is Dr. Maldonado.
So board members, as you know, with other board policies, with new or revised federal regulations, California Ed Code, or legal rulings impact board policies, the CSBA provides us with updated sample policies and language to our district. You'll notice here the many policies that pertain to our board governance and the areas where we lead. So I just would like to open it up for any questions or comments that you may have. As you know, this is the first reading of this set of board policies.
Do we have any public comment for this item? Yes, we do.
Brianna Serrato, board bylaws. The other two are on another item.
I wasn't quite sure where to put this comment, so this seemed like it was the most relevant. And so I was just going to recommend to the board and ask the board and Dr. Maldonado, because did you know when a parent is asking various district leaders about retention and the policy and how to request that, you will get a different answer depending on who you ask and when you ask, and if it's verbal versus if it's in an email versus if it's in a meeting. And it's a really frustrating process for the parent who has been going through this for almost 2 months now. And also with regards to reviewing the board policies, I also recommend, based on some of the feedback I got, the answers I received from various district leaders, was that there might need to be a separate policy if it's in relation to a student that has an IEP. Because again, I was getting different answers as if it was an IEP team decision versus if it wasn't an IEP team decision versus if it's only on the gen ed teacher. And then even if it is based on the current policy and it's based on the gen ed teacher giving the promotion, they're still not following the policy as to when the child is totally failing in reading and ELA and in with mathematics, when they're going between second and third or third and fourth, they're still not providing the information as to why they are still recommending that promotion. So again, maybe need an additional one for our students with disabilities.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Not seeing any comments. Oh, Mr. Banning.
I want to clarify for the board and for you as well, Brianna. What we've been doing over the last couple of meetings is revisions of standard policies that reflect primarily changes in law and this kind of thing. As a matter of fact, the ones that we're talking about here in the 9000 series are all about how the board does business. It's that type of thing. So the comments, we all heard what you have to say. And I think that there's a lot of discussion to be had about how using board policies can help align answers. There's lots of different experiences that we've seen of how to do that. And ultimately, we could say that what's in our policies currently should drive all of our answers. And knowing that and knowing how to get to it can, one, help us give consistent answers. The fact that every policy that we have is online and available for anybody that can work their way through it and understand it to see those types of things. So I do appreciate your comment, because I think understanding what policies that are kept up to date, as we're hoping to do, can do in terms of aligning our responses is really good. And that's something that governance is really about. So I'm hoping that these type of things are something that we can look at as we continue to revise and look at our policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Not on this side.
Ms. Caffrey.
No, thank you.
Okay. So with that, this is the first reading, and we will close out E2 and we'll move to F1, which is a public hearing for the proposed adoption of the 2024 developer fee justification study, adoption of an increase in facilities fees, and adoption of CEQA notice of exemption. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, President Escobedo, Dr. Maldonado, Cabinet. The first item today from the three items that I brought to the board, pending on the public hearing and the resolution 1, and then we will have to review resolution 2 for the increase of developer fees. Prior to adopting resolution 1, we have to hold a public hearing. So, and I will read from my board letter, just one paragraph, so it's very clear what we have done prior to this public hearing and bring in 2 other resolutions. A public hearing is required to receive public comments prior to the adoption of resolutions pertaining to the increase in school facilities fees. The advertisement for the notice of hearing for a potential fee increase was published in a newspaper of general circulation pursuant to Government Code Section 17620 on June 19, 2025 and June 26, 2025. A notice of the public hearing was sent to City and County Planning Departments on July 7, 2025. A notice of the public hearing has been on the district website since June 24, 2025.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment for this item?
I don't think so.
F1.
No.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the board? I'm not seeing any. So we will close out the public hearing, F1, and we will move on to G1, the first action agenda item, approval of resolution number 2025-2026-01, requesting adoption of the 2024 developer fee justification study.
I have a little presentation on that. Okay, so prior to bringing these resolutions to the board, first has to be about the adoption of the study itself. So the school district has hired a schoolworks consultant to complete the facilities needs analysis or developers fee justification study a few months ago. So what that study does, it calculates the student generation factor based on the demographic data and the data about housing units and enrollment and other factors. The purpose of the study was to document residential, commercial, industrial development, and to determine the fees that could be adopted by the school district within the statutory limits. So the residential fee right now is the maximum of $5.17 per square feet. It's up from $4.79. They determined that commercial industrial fee would be 84 cents, up from 78 cents per square foot, and the rental storage is 10 cents, one penny down. So the justification was made that the total residential need could be justified up to $7.60 per square foot based on our residential developments and need in the future, because we'll generate more students from our residential developments. However, we can only raise it to the statutory maximum, which is $5.17 for residential fees. So the projected units for the next 5 years, those are housing units, are calculated to be 2,750. And for the 2,750 units, that will generate 347 students. Let me see here. So, that's part of the student generation factor that was performed. And I don't know what the rest of my slides are. Anyway, so I'll just give you a little bit of mathematics there. So the 760 was calculated. There is a certain amount that California Office of Public School Construction determines as to how much each student needs, or how much each student will cost. So it's the average is $39,000 for 347 students. That's times three. Okay, there it is. Thank you. Okay, so these are the calculations. Based on these calculations, the district is justified to have $13.7 million in the next 5 years from the developer fees. But it's, if we were to be able to raise it to $760 as was calculated. However, because of the statutory limits, we'll raise it to $11 million. We'll raise $11 million. That's the projected how much we'll get within for the developer fees. Our needs exceed the revenues, and the total modernization need is at $13 million, but we'll be expecting $11 million in developer fees based on these calculations. So, am I going backwards? That's what I'm doing. So it's all my fault. I apologize. Okay, so this is the 2020 census data shows how many students per household we have in Santa Barbara. These are interesting factors. So that it's easy to see that we have approximately 1 student per 10 households, if you average it out. We had to prove the nexus requirements, which is the burden nexus, whether, how many students are generated by development, the cost nexus. If, the fees are less to accommodate the new students, the fees that we generate are less than required. And the benefit nexus is, the modernization itself and how it can benefit the students. So we met all three, and, that justifies our statutory fees, and the funds will support our facility infrastructure upgrades for the master plan and modernization of spaces and learning spaces from the master plan. I'll be happy to answer your questions before I ask you to approve the resolution.
Thank you. Any public comment for this item? No public comment for this item. Any questions from the board? Not seeing any comments from the board. Mr. Wren? If not, then can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve resolution number 2025-2026-01, requesting adoption of the 2024 developer fee justification study.
And a second?
I second.
So we have a first from Dr. Beal and a second from Ms. Munoz, and we are doing a roll call vote today. I will choose people at random, but Mr. Banning?
Aye.
Ms. Munoz?
Aye.
Dr. Beal? Ms. Caffrey?
Aye.
Student school board member, Mr. Vasquez? Aye. And I vote aye. It is unanimous.
Thank you. So now we can move on to the resolution number 2, 2025-2602, which asks for approval of the increase in the developer fees, and as follows. So it's going to be $5.17 for residential, 84 cents for commercial, and 10 cents for public storage fees.
Thank you. Any public comment for this item?
No.
Any comments or questions from the board? I'm not seeing any. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 2025-2026-02, requesting adoption of an increase in the developer fees and adoption of CEQA exemption notice.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
We have a first and a second. We will do a roll call vote. Student School Board Member, Mr. Vasquez. Ms. Caffrey.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz. I vote aye. Mr. Banning.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Oh, Dr. Beal. Well, this is what happens when I choose people at random.
Thank you.
And Dr. Beal votes aye, so it's unanimous. We will close out G2 and we will move on to G3, Board Action on Interdistrict Transfer Appeals for 2025-2026 school year, Education Code 46600-4661-1, case numbers 2025-26-T01, 2025-26-T02, 2025-26-T03, 2025-26-T04, 2025-26-T05, and 2025-26-T02. And we have to take these one at a time. Is that 06? Thank you for correcting me. And we have to take these one at a time. So do I have a motion?
I move to approve. Deny. I'm denying. I move to deny interdistrict transfer appeal for 2025-26 school year, Education Code 466-100, 46611, case number 2025-26-T01.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a first and a second, and I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Banning.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Dr. Beal. Ms. Caffrey.
Aye.
Mr. Vasquez. And I vote aye.
I move to deny interdistrict transfer appeal for 2025-2026 school year, Education Code 46600 to 46661, case number 202526-T02.
I second.
We have a first and a second, and we'll do the same roll call vote. Mr. Banning.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Dr. Beal. Ms. Caffrey.
Aye.
Mr. Vasquez. And I vote aye. Unanimous.
I move to approve. I move to deny interdistrict transfer appeal for 2025-2026 school year, Education Code 46600, 46661, case number 202526-T03.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Banning.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Dr. Beal. Ms. Caffrey.
Aye.
Mr. Vasquez. And I vote aye. It's unanimous.
I move to deny interdistrict transfer appeal for 2025-26 school year, Education Code 46600 to 46611, case number 2025-26-T04.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Banning.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Dr. Beal. Ms. Caffrey.
Aye.
Mr. Vasquez. And I vote aye. It's unanimous.
I move to approve. I'm going to get one of them right. I move to deny interdistrict transfer appeal for 2025-2026 school year, Education Code 46600, 46661, case number 2025-26-T05.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Banning.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Dr. Beal. Ms. Caffrey.
Aye.
Mr. Vasquez. And I vote aye. That's unanimous.
I move to deny interdistrict transfer appeal 2025-2026 school year, Education Code 46600-46611, case number 2025-26-T06.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Banning.
Aye.
Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
Dr. Beal. Ms. Caffrey,
Aye.
Mr. Vasquez, and I vote aye. That's unanimous. And that closes out G3 on the action agenda item. And we will now move on to G4, approval of employment agreement with Dr. Sonia Wilson, Assistant Superintendent, Educational Services. Welcome, Dr. Vecchio.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Board President Escobedo, board members, Superintendent Maldonado. As a reminder, at our last meeting closed session, you approved the appointment of Dr. Sonia Wilson to be the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. And what I'm bringing before you tonight is the contract that outlines the relationship between Dr. Wilson and Santa Barbara Unified School District in her position as Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment for this item?
No.
We have no public comment. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? I'm not seeing any. I will just echo my comments earlier that we are excited to have Dr. Wilson on the cabinet team. And so with that, do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the employment agreement with Dr. Sonia Wilson, Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. We will do a roll call vote. Dr. Beal, Ms. Munoz,
Aye.
Mr. Banning,
Aye.
Mr. Vasquez, Ms. Caffrey,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vecchio. That closes out G4, and we'll now move on to G5, approval of job description for an in-house general counsel. And I believe this is Dr. Maldonado.
Thank you, Board President Escobedo. Board members, as you may recall, as part of the work we did last year in looking at the way that we fund the many things that we have in our school district, one of the suggestions that was made was to really take stock of some of the ways that we spend our funds and look at ways that we can consolidate efforts or that we can just think about working differently so that we can bring down our expenses. So today I'm bringing forward to you a follow-up to the proposals that were part of our initial plans to save money last year with the goal of really trying to save close to $200,000 in legal fees. Of course, one can never predict the needs that will happen in our school district, but this proposal really is looking at bringing this in-house counsel to really mitigate some of those areas of learning that many of our managers or administrators may need around really understanding their particular area of expertise and the legal matters that they oversee. We also know that bringing in an in-house counsel will provide a fixed cost to the district, and the aim is to reduce consultation fees. However, I want to make sure that the board understands, I know that there will need to still continue to be some consultation fees, particularly for cases in areas that are specialized, whether it's special education, labor negotiations. One of the questions that was brought up, if there's a need for the board to have consultation on board matters, that would be another area where we would bring that. And of course, having a legal counsel available to the board in our board meetings, to name a few things. In the board memo, we also identified areas of building capacity for our school leaders around human resources, around special education, student family services, so that again, we can try to look toward a model of prevention of litigation rather than having to just manage it on the back end. We really want everyone to know and understand policy, legal language, and ways that they would enact their jobs as they lead in different areas of the district. So this is, again, a follow-up from last year's work around fiscal prudency, and we're hoping that you will approve this item. I'll hear for any questions.
Do we have any public comment for this item? No public comment. Do I have any questions from my colleagues? Dr. Beal.
So I know that this was mentioned when we were discussing the reduction in force, but it was, of course, not something the board was voting on. And so at the time, I had a lot of questions, but they really got deferred to much more urgent issues that were on that agenda. Do we have a cost benefit analysis that tells us what we have spent for anywhere from the last 3 to 5 years, specifically on general counsel and items that if could have been deferred to a general counsel? Because I think that's important for us to look at the cost benefit, and basically the cost should also include much more than the salary. So I'd be interested to see this.
Yeah, there we go. I was loud enough anyway. So what I was able to do in the short time that I've been here is come back and go look through some historically how much we've spent on legal expenses, and without really having a whole lot of time to dive into each individual item, it looks like we have spent anywhere from 700 to almost 900,000 in a year on legal expenses, and that's across all attorneys and across all departments. And so the benefit comes from how much, if we do hire someone internally, like how much that person knows to it and how many of those things that they could cover. And so there's also other benefits about just things that we as leaders maybe should have talked to an attorney, but didn't because we didn't want to incur the cost to that. So the difference between an in-house attorney with benefits could be, if you look at the $850,000 that we've spent in recent years to about $350,000 to what it would cost to hire someone with benefits. So that difference would be the budget benefit that we might be able to. I don't know if that answers your question, because there's a lot of unknowns.
I think it does and it does not. So first of all, those are our total legal costs.
Correct.
So I think there definitely is, if we had a breakdown, certainly there are areas where we had specialty firms that we mentioned that we're going to continue to work with those firms, and those costs could be broken out. And so that total number we're given is not what we would save with the general counsel, because we still would have to engage with those specialty firms because it's a level of expertise that a general counsel is not expected to have. So I think this is really important for me, because really it does need to be a cost benefit evaluation. And I don't feel that we have that answer based upon what we were given. And I also feel that the cost of the general counsel, there's the monetary cost. And we're just starting to look at that because we're like, okay, there's a cost of the salary, which is not a low salary. It's a pretty good salary, but legal expenses are high no matter whether they're outside or inside. The benefits, though, we will be covering the benefits. There'll be malpractice insurance. So, I paid $14,000 a year, and that's with good behavior. And so that can actually be a significant part of the cost. Also, this is a person that is not an education person. So the type of support legal counsel would need would be a different level of support than we provide for our district staff, because somebody's going to have to read the legal documents. Somebody's going to have to write the legal documents. There's access to libraries. So I feel that I don't have enough feedback on what this will actually cost us or potentially save us. So I think that's a very financial document. And I understand you didn't have the time. You just started. But we started talking about this last spring. So I think that from my point of view, I cannot make a decision on this based upon the information I was given. So there is a lack of information. I will make a separate comment after this. But right now, I feel like I cannot make this financial decision based upon the information that I was given.
Any additional questions from my colleagues? Ms. Munoz.
Mine is more of a comment.
Ms. Caffrey.
So my question is similar, or it's similar to Trustee Beals about a cost benefit analysis and understanding better the monetary damages that we have been paying over the last few years. Because when I think of our legal costs, I think not only of how much we're paying our lawyers, but also how much are we paying out, and how do we prevent litigation, and also how well do our lawyers negotiate on our behalf. So I guess in terms of deciding whether it makes sense to go with an in-house counsel, my question is, can we get more information on the types of litigation? Not all of them. It doesn't have to be all, but for the past 3 to 5 years, the major cases that that have come up against us and the monetary damages. So we have some sense of trend. And do you understand what my question is?
Yeah. That is, I mean, generally that is information. It'll take a little time for me to pull that together, but I do have some numbers on kind of monetary settlements that we paid out. Some of them, because some of them come from the district and some of them come from our liability insurance carrier, CISC, who represents us on some of those things as well. But something that's not part of that is some of the mediations to where, or some of the agreements where we didn't end up having to settle. So I've seen numbers from 400 to almost 600,000 in settlements that include us paying attorney's fees for the other side of the agreement. So those are the numbers that I have as far as what has happened over the last 6 or 7 years. As far as which cases, which significant cases we have, I'd have to do a little more research on that.
I guess my question is, could we find an in-house counsel who is skilled and is able to continue to minimize monetary damages going forward? Because those can really dwarf the amount we're actually paying in legal fees.
Correct. That would be the quest. And I think to the other question was finding someone who does have experience in school district legal matters. When a new law comes into, it is from the state level and how is that interpreted? I think most good attorneys can do that, but having some attorneys that do have some school district background would be a very big benefit for us.
Thank you.
Dr. Beal? Oh. Mr. Bailey?
I believe the item before us is the approval of a job description. A job description standing alone does not authorize the hiring of somebody in this position. It needs to go through human resources to create positions and so forth. So I just want to make sure I understand what it is we're being asked for tonight. Is it the position description alone, or is there additional request for opening positions for hiring?
So my intention was to bring both the job description and once we approve that, to move forward with creating a search for someone with education experience. We may or may not find someone like that. As you know, board members, I come from a school district where there is in-house general counsel, and I have seen the benefits in my career of being trained well by our general counsel in many areas of our school system, from special education to issues of English learners, handling IEPs, workman's comp, Family Medical Leave Act, things that typically get us in trouble or create situations where we have settlements. But again, my intention tonight is to get the job description approved so that we can move forward with the search in hopes that we can find that person that has that skill set.
What processes need to take place in order to allow a search after the creation of a job description?
So the board, this is being brought forward as an item. It has a dollar amount on there. The job description, once approved, what we would do is we would seek the search, the recruitment and selection process. We would go through that. The appointment would come back before the board for approval of a person, the contract, kind of as you saw tonight with the same process we went through with Dr. Wilson. So this tonight, the approval would be approving the job description that we would then go execute on the recruitment and selection process.
is there a requirement or a process in place to create a position control process that says we have a job description, there is a matching position, it is budgeted in this location so that all of the pieces come together?
Yes, that we would do that in HR.
I have a fiscal question. So if given more time than a couple of weeks, is it possible to tease out from the expenses that we had, let's say last school year, and tease out what would be the most appropriate for a general counsel versus we're always going to need specialized counsel for when items come up. But for the general counsel, would it be possible to do an analysis and say of our expenses last year, what we went out with all these law firms, we would probably be able to cover with general counsel this dollar amount?
I believe that's something we could do. We do have one attorney firm that is considered our general counsel, and we spend about $450,000 or even a little bit more annually with them. They also handle some like facilities issues and things like that. So there are things that we can isolate as far as what general counsel would be able to handle. But also, like I mentioned, depending on who you hire, this person may be able to do more than that. And I think we've talked about the additional benefits of training, support, just answering a quick question for cabinet, for leaders, for anybody. I mean, that is part of the benefit, and that we don't see in what we pay our general counsel. So picking out those specific issues that general counsel is helping us with, we can put a dollar amount to that. But there could be additional things that we would use them for, but we don't, so we don't incur that extra cost.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. And I know that when we were having the discussion in the spring, we were talking about different ways to meet I think it was the 9.8 million in the first year, and then we have another 4.2 million for this upcoming year. If we decide to go status quo for this upcoming year regarding legal counsel, what does that mean for the budget decisions that we have to make for the upcoming school year?
Well, we have amounts budgeted for legal, but what I've seen has happened is we have a contract that with a not to exceed amount, and then things have happened and then that amount gets exceeded. And so what we're trying to do is budget them appropriately. So we're planning for that, or really sticking to the not to exceed. And so currently we have them in the budget, the contracts that will be coming to the board. But pending kind of how things go, we can adjust those contracts to be shorter time periods for less dollar amounts as if we end up transitioning to this method.
Lacey? Yes.
And part of this is having conversations amongst ourselves of really being discerning when we're making those calls, because every minute counts. As you know, we get billed for text messages, emails, calls. So discernment from the leaders is one aspect of this. And the other aspect of this is really speaking with the law firms that service our school district or that have on how they can also help us with their billing practices to make sure that we can discern. I think part of the challenge that Mr. Tedeschi has figured out here, I hope I pronounced your last name correct.
It's Tedeschi.
Tedeschi. One of the challenges that Mr. Tedeschi has appropriately identified is some of the ways that we track invoicing, billing, and attach it to the different departments and the different areas that we are working with. So our office, HR office, or, the other departments. And as I think about the cost benefit analysis, I really do think that taking more time to find out more information is not going to yield a different result than what we're bringing forward today. I understand the board's need for the cost benefit analysis, but our system isn't set up to really track in that way. And that's one of the things we've talked about. How can we get better at figuring out the way that we're tracking all of these expenses on our side, but also working with our legal firms to make sure that we shore that up.
Is it possible? I'll ask this one question, then I'll turn it over. Is it possible? I hear you about tracking, like going backwards because of the billing practices. Is it possible going forward for us to then maybe categorize expenses and possibly identify what could be covered with general counsel, not understanding what this person's expertise is because they may be able to do more, but what a reasonable expectation of general counsel would be?
I have every expectation to do that anyway. As these questions came up and I pulled a couple legal bills and started to sift through them, they weren't case specific or topic specific necessarily. You had to read through each line to see what it was being billed for. And so that's why it became too much to really pull together some good data to identify that. So I've already got that on my list to work with our general counsel specifically to really upgrade how they're billing us and how it's broken out so that I can send the invoices around to the different administrator who use them for that, for them to sign off on it, to take a look how many hours were spent, to really, dive into that. That's a goal.
And would that kind of tracking continue to exist with an in-house counsel so that they were tracking their hours by department, by function as well?
Absolutely. That would be a process we would set up. We would give them a set of account codes and, provide that, be able to provide that and start breaking down each department, how much they're charged for. We would set up a template at the beginning of the year and then reconcile it throughout as we do the budget and move things around as needed. We would have them keep time.
We approved your hiring this year to be our CFO with the idea that you will help us to maintain and improve our expenditures and meet the challenges of 2 years of budget reductions. Do you believe this is a strong, appropriate strategy to do that?
I do believe this is something that could yield that result. This is my first deeper dive into a specific topic that I think, as I've looked at what we're charged and what we're charged for, like for instance, a partner will charge us $300 an hour for their time. If we hired someone at $250,000 with benefits on top of that, it would be about $160 an hour. So there is a potential cost reduction there, but it would be how we would use the other attorneys and finding a way, and depending on who we hire. Hopefully we could hire someone who has a breadth of knowledge to where we could scale back one or two of the other areas. So I do believe we could achieve some cost savings by doing
and I do understand also the concept of in-house training, if you will. The more often that people can go to somebody that is a colleague and learn from them, the more likely they will have the confidence to not use that service or need it in subsequent situations. All right. Thank you.
Sure. Ms. Munoz and then Dr. Beal.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Banning, and thank you also for the explanation. I see the benefit of, the support of in-house counsel in terms of training staff and being able to sit in on conversations and look at it from a legal perspective. Many times we've talked in, closed session about situations that have come up, whether it be with IEPs or many other issues, staff issue, personnel concerns and so forth. And we've talked about, I know over the years that I've been here, how could this have been prevented? How could we have a better approach on this? And so I really see it as a cost savings in terms of having that opportunity to grow and learn along the way. So as much for staff, for cabinet, for directors, and for the board also. And I also see the possibility of an in-house counsel to be able to consult with other school districts, such as the larger school districts, as Dr. Maldonado mentioned, and learn from them and build our own in-house strength with that. in terms of not only like the, as you mentioned, like the per hour cost savings, but also prevention and such. I really, am interested in learning more about this.
Yeah, it would be difficult to put a dollar value on the savings of that intangible of keeping us, from getting in trouble with a lawsuit or something like that. There's a value to that, but it's hard to, there's no number I can give you.
Certainly. That's why I made it more of a comment.
Okay.
Because that is crucial. And I wouldn't be asking for a dollar amount.
Are there any other questions from the board?
Just simple question. Is this in-house counsel a person that will live here, meaning in this building? Is this someone that comes to work here, or is this something that that is in part virtual?
They will be in person in our district office.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? I'm not seeing any. Are there any comments? Dr. Beal.
So I did look at the job description, and right now it says 5 years experience in an educational whatever capacity. So that number was not impressive to me. I think there are a lot of facets to educational law. There's HR, there's all the sexual, harassment, including students, right? And so when I looked at the job description, I thought, this isn't really I would want somebody, because they are going to be our first point of contact. I would want somebody with a great deal more experience. And I would also, given the atmosphere that's happening right now with sexual assault claims being able to be brought forward, that we have somebody who has expertise in that, because our special education costs and potentially claims against the district for sexual activity that happened years ago are big ticket numbers and are happening right now in local districts next to us. And so I think that it would be important. I know that the prosecution will often happen with outside firms, but our initial response to things that may have happened not within our district office, but it happened, is important. So I have an issue with the job description, because I don't feel that it actually, if the next step is to now start a search based upon this job description, it's not enough. I would want a lot more, this is going to be the person for the district. Would they need to have credentials that are a higher level from my point of view? The second thing is, I understand that we can save money with good training. I totally agree. Professional development, wherever it happens, is always better. Now, I do not have the lawyer from UCSB come and talk to me about malpractice. That is actually some part of my professional development that I need to maintain. I listen to seminars. I keep up with that. So I think the question of professional development, yes, it would be great to have an in-house attorney, but we need to be doing that professional development separately, because this person isn't going to talk to everybody, and we're an ever-changing district. So it's not going to keep us off the hook for the professional development we need to do for our district employees. So it will save us money, I agree, but it's not going to solve the problem. The other thing that I think is really concerning for me is it's more of a kind of a philosophical issue. So we are not Los Angeles. So that is a big school district. So I can understand with a huge company, a big school district, you really need in-house counsel because you have so many moving parts. We are not tiny, but we're not large. So I just because other school districts have in-house counsel doesn't mean we have to have in-house counsel. So I think we need to think carefully about adding this position, and will bring us value. The most important thing for me is, are we being, pound foolish, penny wise? I feel that how we approach legal matters has to be done well from the outset. And if we have inexperienced legal counsel, we may lose more money than we save in the long run. And that's unpredictable. So I'm not asking anybody to figure that one out. But I think this decision needs to be made very carefully.
about whether, as we go into negotiations with our union, as we see that our local districts are having more harassment claims that came from years ago, whether we want to move away from the council we have right now. I don't know if anybody was reading the Montecito Journal within the last 2 weeks, but there was a great conversation between and Superintendent Rana of the Montecito Union, using the same firm we are using for our claims, that talks about the nuances of trying to get a settlement before you go to a jury trial. And it is on my mind that our general counsel, who has been serving us well, has a great deal of experience. And we talk about a lot of things during closed session. And I've always appreciated the expertise that comes to us from our current general counsel. So it bothers me to make this switch for a lot of reasons. Does it make financial sense? Who is going to replace our general counsel? And at this time, do we really feel that our general counsel is a firm that we want to push away from us? That's as much as I can say about that. I feel that they've been doing a good job, and I think that the money we spend to protect ourselves is money well spent, because unfortunately the wards keep getting larger and larger. So I just feel that this is something that sounds good on the surface, but maybe in the end will not be such a savings. So that's my comment.
Other comments from my colleagues? Ms. Caffrey.
I guess my question is, beyond abuse cases, do we have more low-level legal needs that right now we're spending high amounts to cover? So could it make sense to bring in an in-house general counsel, because there are lots of less complicated legal issues that may come up that we're paying a high premium to deal with. And then when we have these more complex issues that require very experienced lawyer, then we go outside and use a general counsel that specializes in this type of abuse cases. So that is my question for Trustee Beal. I know there are many different types of legal matters, and some of them are pretty basic for a lawyer, but complex for a non-lawyer. But then there's the next level of, more challenging cases that perhaps we would need a very experienced lawyer to help us with. Do you see what I mean, Trustee Beal?
Well, that's the question. When I ask about the cost-benefit ratio, how much are we using our high-level general counsel for low-level needs, et cetera, et cetera? So really looking at this deeply and saying, where is the cost savings? Like, I think we could come up with a rough number and just, rather than saying, okay, it's this big number minus what it would cost us to have general counsel, and say that covers it all, because I don't think it covers it all. So I think that is really a interesting question to answer. Yeah. And I guess, I don't know. I think there are conversations that have gone on with our general counsel, but I don't know that we can bring them up. But have we discussed this with them about the increasing cost and whether they can help us with cost saving measures?
Dr. Maldonado.
Yes, we have.
And so that's something that hasn't been formally presented to the board either.
You received a memo from the general counsel about that conversation from our general counsel.
I think received a memo, but was there a monetary amount mentioned?
I believe there was in the memo. Yeah.
I have
Ms.
one more.
Caffrey.
So I have one more question. I'm sorry, we're going back and forth between questions and comments, but things are brought up when other people make comments. Is that fine?
Go ahead.
So basically, one question I have about the job description, to Trustee Banning's point, I wonder, for obviously $200,000 is a good amount of money, but for a lawyer, that's actually not that high of a salary. And I wonder about requiring a general counsel to live here and be here versus a virtual option and having a wider pool of people who might live in a lower cost of living place and then want to work for that salary. I guess my concern is back to Trustee Beals, which is the level of expertise of our general counsel and how do we ensure that the general counsel is as qualified as possible. So might a virtual option make it appealing to someone who lives elsewhere but is more experienced? I don't know what you think about that.
Was that a question for me or Trustee Banning?
I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess
I will take it on.
Yeah.
Our intention is not to go with a remote attorney as a preferred. Well, we really don't really have many remote employees. For us, it's important to have an in-person general counsel because part of the professional development aspect of the job would be to interface with not just us here in the district office or board members, but rather out in the field, talking to our leaders, talking to our assistant principals, being part of our community. I get your point about the cost saving, but that's for me not something that I would value highly, but rather look for someone locally.
I guess it's not that I want to lower the salary. My concern is that how many lawyers want to work for that salary who are very highly qualified and would live in Santa Barbara, as opposed to if you live in a lower cost place and can work virtually, it might be more appealing. That's my question. Because as legal salaries go, that is not particularly high.
Do you have a response?
Well, I was just going to say that we don't know what we don't know in terms of who we're going to get. And there are many people that are not necessarily, that have combined incomes with their spouse. And I know just maybe I'm a little biased, but having been in education so long, sometimes we have people who feel the quality of life being in education is a little more balanced as opposed to a firm that maybe takes up more hours. So there's many reasons why somebody would want to do this, and I can't speak to all of them, but I feel pretty confident that we could find that kind of a person in our community. But that will be determined once if and this gets approved and we do our search. We will always bring this finalist to the board like we do with all of our contract employees, where you'll have a chance and an opportunity to weigh in as well, if this gets approved.
Thank you.
Additional comments from maybe Mr. Banning or Ms. Munoz before I jump in with my comments?
I think I've asked the questions that I need. I'm making a presumption that if this is approved, that along with the search and the potential hiring of someone, that this will be a person that we're going to be evaluating in terms of effectiveness and cost effectiveness as well. And I want to, I'm not hearing let's lock something in that's going to cost us money if it doesn't work or is going to be ineffective. If this is a bold idea, if this is a big audacious idea that we're looking at, the only way we really know at this point would be to give it a shot. But I would concur with some of the questions about whether this is nothing's absolute. It seems like there's been a lot of good thought that goes in around this. I'm also curious about what kind of personnel, what kind of people you're going to find with that. And it is an attempt to develop internal staff to save money. It's something we've been talking about. I have a level of not sure that this is going to work, but I'm one voice, and often it's I'll go along with show me. Let's give it a try and see if it works.
Ms. Munoz.
Yes, I would certainly echo that I think it's worth trying and considering, and see where it takes us.
Okay. All right. So a couple things. I'll start here is that I was actually really surprised when I first got on the school board that we didn't have in-house general counsel. I think there are a lot of benefits to in-house general counsel. There have been meetings where it would have been extremely useful to have general counsel here to answer our questions about a variety of things, including Brown Act. And I hear you, Dr. Beal, when you bring up the 5 years experience, but you never really build a job description for the perfect candidate. These are minimums, like minimum requirements. And so when you go out and do the job search, I would hope that we're looking for the right candidate that meets our needs and not necessarily the bare minimum. So I don't necessarily have a problem with the job description and the level of experience. I share Ms. Caffrey's question, and probably I think the most opportunity for cost savings is what are the, not, I guess for lack of a better way of putting it, I think Ms. Caffrey put it far better than I. What are the low-level legal questions and tasks and things that we are asking for right now that are costing us more that could be general counsel costing us less? I am a little bit skeptical about one general counsel being able to do this on their own with current support staff. I think that one thing that I think will end up coming out of this is they will likely need paralegal or some other sort of support. I'm not totally convinced that one person can do this all on their own. I think in the long run, it still saves us money. I feel comfortable actually asking Mr. Tedeschi to do the work of categorizing of our expenses, even if it's just moving forward and even if it's over the next few months. Because one of the things about this position in particular is it's not like hiring a teacher or a principal or an assistant principal where I feel like there's really, when you commit to a school year, you're committing to the full school year. I think there would be an opportunity for us to hire legal counsel in the middle of the school year. Maybe I'm wrong. So maybe even if it is 6 months of information about how we're spending money on legal expenses, what do we think can be categorized as general legal counsel, and we're never going to know what this hypothetical person that we're going to hire, their skill set is, but a reasonable expectation of a general counsel of our expenses. And I really think that the value that they bring is more than just monetary. I think there is a lot of really intangible, like not fiscal specific benefit to having someone that you can ask a question to. I think especially at a time when we're having to question every dollar that we spend, because it comes with impacts long-term and impacts as we look forward to another stressful discussion about preliminary reduction in force potentially in that March 15th deadline. We're going to look at every single dollar. And if we're in that frame of thinking and we're asking ourselves, okay, I have this legal question, and do I want to go and ask our general counsel now, understanding that with every minute it's going to incur a cost and quite a high cost? I would hate for our staff to feel like that question weighs on them and they decide not to go with it, even if it's the most prudent answer. And I think we're going to be in that frame of thinking far more often in the next few years than we want to be. Having a general legal counsel at least relieves some of that. We're always going to need partners outside of just general legal counsel if we go this route. I imagine that our general legal counsel now will continue to support us into the future. They just have a level of expertise and I trust their judgment. But we really do need to start. I think this is one area that we can save some money in. And I think deserve to investigate it. I think part of that investigation, and I would poll my colleagues. I think we send Mr. Tedeschi and his team with direction that they come back to the board at some time in the future with an analysis of what we think we can actually save or what the actual benefits are. I think that is lacking a little bit in this. And then I think we make a real decision. I lean towards supporting general counsel. I really do, in-house general counsel. But I think even if we do the exercise of assessing what we're spending on legal fees and what could be attributed to general legal counsel, I think it would be a helpful exercise for us. Dr. Beal.
Thank you for that explanation of your reasoning. I think that was very good. I would also want us to do a little investigation in terms of what a job description might look like for a school general counsel, because I'm more interested in very school specific issues and saying we want experience in those areas. Not just has 5 years of experience with education. They could have been in a firm that defends educational cases, and they could say, "Oh yeah, I have 5 years of this." But were they involved in a case? Obviously, there are things you can ask, but I do think that if we want to have a good quality counsel, we need to know what they're going to do, and do they have the expertise to do that, because they are going to be the first person. So I think we could boost up that description a little bit better to have some very specific requirements there. I'm happy to do some research myself, to see what's out there, but I do want to make sure that we get applicants that we're not like, oh, well, we got 5 people. They can afford to live in Santa Barbara, not afford to live in Santa Barbara. They have 5 years experience. These are our choices. We get to choose from these 5. I really would want it. I think this is a very specific thing. This isn't a homegrown, we take somebody from our ranks and move them up to general counsel. This is somebody who comes from the outside. So it's different. It's very, very different. And so I think that for me would also be an improvement. And then I hope we can have a conversation with our general counsel we have now for a better understanding that we have ballooning legal costs and that there will be continued business, because I do think they have expertise that's very local in California that I think is actually really, really important from our conversations with them. And so I mourn the loss of that if that is not going to be our first step. Anyway.
Dr. Maldonado.
I do want the board to know for the job description, this is industry standard for school districts. And it basically, we took it from that level. So it's not something that we just kind of came up on our own, but rather what other school districts that have general counsel typically list in job descriptions. But I do want to acknowledge that I hear the look for in a person versus the job description, and acknowledge that 2 different things. And it would be the same probably argument with our teacher job descriptions and others. So it is something that we would want to look for beyond the minimum. But it is an industry standard job description from other school districts that we took from.
Thank you. Ms. Caffrey.
I mean, I would be fine approving the job description tonight, and then we have a further conversation with more data when we actually get applicants. We can put out the job description and agree to put it out, plus get the data that we want. Would that work as an option? So we see who is out there and what is possible. We have more information. What would you all think?
Do we have to work with a search firm? Is this a specific job that we would have to engage with and pay a search firm?
I think that's a decision we would make in-house. I think that there's always a possibility. I would not think that we would need to start off that way, because we want to kind of see what's out in the world before we decide to go to a search firm. I think you go to a search firm when you can't find qualified candidates, but unless we actually do a sweep of who's out there, we won't know that. That's typically been my experience, that you do a search firm when you don't find the qualified candidate that you're looking for. Am I wrong, Dr. Vecchio?
I was not anticipating that using a search firm, at least initially. If there's a need to do so and justification for that, then we would we would come back to the board for that expenditure. So there's a pretty significant cost to using a search firm.
To give my 2 cents into the question that Ms. Caffrey asked. I mean, I'm hesitant to approve a job description and do a search for a job that we might pull after getting applications for a position. Like, that doesn't seem right to me, to put a job opportunity out there, and then after we get the numbers back, we say, actually, no, never mind, we don't want to hire for this position.
I personally think we should give Mr. Tedeschi the time to do the analysis that we're asking and make a more informed decision about this.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Ms. Munoz, Mr. Banning, do you have any strong feelings about going either way?
Do you have concern about timing of hiring and advertising? This was one of the comments that was made about not being tied to the school year type of thing. Do you have concerns about the loss of qualified candidates if we don't move quickly?
I don't see this job as the time, like the particular regular education timing. That's typically a 12-month job. So I don't see that as being a factor.
What further information could you get us before the next board meeting? Is that doable? This is a busy time, I know. If we're asking for this information, do you need a month? Do you need 2? Do you need...
Well, I would make it a priority. We are in the throes of closing the books. We have to do that by the end of August. But I mean, I couldn't give you 5 years. What I thought maybe is go back a few months and maybe the next bill or 2. But that would be, to go forward, it would be a couple months. I mean, we're still waiting for June bills. And so I could pull some from the last few months or some of the bigger, just kind of start thumbing through them and see what would make the most sense. But if that's a high priority for us, I make it a high priority for me.
I think Mr. Tedeschi mentioned a system moving forward where we're actually kind of paying attention to those details so that we know where the money is going, which I'm super excited about. We've been, I think that's a great system. So some of the data may actually be incoming rather than retrospective.
I don't want people to have the impression that we don't know where the money is going, because just because the invoices aren't, it's just harder for me to go back and see where it went. So when those invoices come in, they get sent around and people review. It's just they have to go around and they're just not as organized in a way to go back and build information.
So that's really like, how much time are we going to spend on analysis? I mean, we do have this finance committee that, there's probably going to be bigger areas in which we're looking at larger areas and we're not trying to drill down to the details. But moving forward, if we say we're going to put the details in there, then we can kind of in real time say, oh, this is how we're spending our money, because now we know how we're looking at it. So that's why I feel like the data moving forward might be better informed and I don't know that I want to put you on a job that's going to take thousands of hours just to answer this question. I wouldn't task you with that. I'm not asking you to do that personally.
My intent would be to, if I was going to do it, would be to come back with something by the next board meeting and not spend thousands of hours going back years to try to figure out, but try to get a good sample of a representation of what we've been doing with General Counsel.
Is that understanding your workload and all of your different priorities, would the next board meeting be the most reasonable, or would the board meeting after that be better in terms of expectation setting for the board. I know this is a high priority right now because we're talking about this right now, but we have a lot of priorities. And so I want to give you the way out if the next board meeting is not the most reasonable expectation from the board.
It could be reasonable. I mean, I would have to start digging in and see how much time it would take. When I start digging in, will really determine if I can't get it for the next board meeting, then it would be the meeting after that. But the goal would be to get it as soon as possible. And if I can get a good sample of what that would, of really what the story looks like by just kind of going through some of those. To be honest with you, my workload, I'm still figuring it out. I know it's getting busier and busier every day. Things come up. And I can tell you in the last 2 weeks, I would have called an attorney probably 3 or 4 times for some of the things that have come up. And I'm trying not to, but I think there are some things that I'm just need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Ms. Munoz.
Yeah, I guess the question is, to me, the question is still not clear. Are we looking at, how much of a difference is this going to be, like, for us to get the data, in terms of the cost of what we spent on legal fees and supporting this position? I guess that's kind of an open question to my fellow board members.
I think the request is, bringing this forward is because it will save us money is kind of the presumption. And I think what we're asking for is just a little bit more information that supports that justification. And go ahead, Mr. Bennick.
I think that the board is on a razor's edge at this point in terms of I'm sensing back and forth. Maybe a modification here would be I'm not hearing a lot of talk about, especially after hearing from you say that the job description is industry standard. It came from those types of things, and the salary is something that seems to be all right. Would an alternative for us be to approve the job description tonight with the commitment to hold the processes on search until we have had perhaps a little more detailed presentation that says, given this much time and here's more information that helps us be able to say with some greater level of certainty, never exact, that this is something that we're really looking at. That allows us to move forward, but also honor the discussion that we're having from board members. It seems to be a reasonable question about cost benefit.
Yeah, that would be helpful. That's helpful to me.
That would be a fair compromise, board members. And please know that one of the intentions for us is also to bring you contracts next board meeting for the specialized agencies. And I have worked with our cabinet leaders to, again, be discerning, like, take time, really ask yourself, do I really not know that answer? Do I need to call? And so we are talking to our firms, and our intention was to bring those contracts next week not next week, at the next meeting, because we still have to have legal firms contracted for the school year. So while we don't have an urgency of hiring based on tempo, we do have an urgency of getting contracts approved for legal counsel. You will still have those coming forward.
So I have the sense that from staff that this is something that they're favoring, that they believe is a good move. If you're convinced that as a staff, as a cabinet, that this is something that you're going to be able to justify to us in it with a little bit more information, bring your proposals next week for the expectation that you're going to have that data for us. You're watching a board right now that's sitting just right here. And if you have the confidence that you can bring us something that's going to either say yes or no, even if you think it's going to be yes, then bring the others with that reduction in place. I guess what I'm saying is make the presumption that this is going to move forward based on an expectation that you can bring us the data that we're asking for.
And I would like to ask the board's permission to approve the position, knowing that you will give me the final call at the next meeting, and we would not move forward with any advertising or anything at all.
Dr. Beal.
I'll make one more comment. So I'm looking at a job description for in-house legal counsel for Sacramento. And there's simple words like, it does have 5 years, but it says increasingly responsible experience in education and or affiliation with a firm. So it really does have this very specific language that says you have to have had a lot of educational experience. So, I mean, like I said, I can do this research. There's actually in this description, the actual expectations, once again, why would we want to recruit somebody and then later give them a job description? They don't fulfill the requirements. I just don't see why it can't be more specific. And I'm looking at one from Sacramento right here. So I don't know what industry standard means because, yeah, sure, you can have just basic language, but I think, there you can also be more specific and you're just going to tell people what you need and get applicants that you want.
So I'm a little confused about what the conversation about the contracts for next meeting. No matter what, even if we approve this tonight, we're going to need legal counsel contracts and we're going to need to budget for that because I imagine we're not going to find anyone with it. It's going to take us a while to find somebody. So I personally don't feel the urgency to approve the job description. I think we approve it when we're all on board that this is the route that we're going to go. Approving the job description and then waiting for the data to come in later just sounds a little bit backwards to me. I think if the board's on board with it, if the board supports it, then we would vote to support the job description, not need additional information. I think if we need additional information, we should get that and then make the decision. So that's where I'm at. It sounds like Dr. Beal has some suggestions for the job description specifically. My request would be, and let me throw this out there so that I think I kind of know where we're all at. I think we give Mr. Tedeschi direction to provide us with whatever he finds to be appropriate to support this moving within House Counsel, or you might find information that is otherwise, but whatever that information is, either at the next meeting or the following meeting, whatever you determine to be reasonable. And between now and then, whether it's the next meeting or the following meeting, that if people have suggestions for the job description, that they provide those with adequate time, not at the last minute, and that we come ready to make a decision. So that means asking all your questions, requesting reasonable amounts of information, please, and that we make a determination at the next meeting or the following meeting when Mr. Tedeschi determines it's reasonable to present to the board. And I'm going to ask for feedback from my colleagues. Not all at once.
Obviously, I support waiting.
Okay. Or someone can make a motion to approve the job. Ms. Caffrey?
I think Trustee Escobedo, that's a reasonable plan.
Thank you.
I agree.
Yeah, I also agree.
Okay. So do you have enough information from us or any questions that could be helpful between now and when it comes back?
I think I'm clear. We will have you bring the information you deem appropriate. I did hear you say, but if people need more information, to ask that. So can you clarify? He decides what information to bring.
He decides what information to bring, but if we have, I want them to come ready to make a decision, and I don't want there to be a bunch of last minute questions. So help me help me create the
Right. So I
the
think the board is asking that Mr. Tedeschi provide the data to support or not this proposal. And you want that data ahead of the meeting so that if you have questions, you can give them to him. Is he defining the parameters of the data we're bringing forward, or is he defining bringing it to you? You get to look at it and ask more questions.
Mr. Tedeschi is going to do an analysis of the legal expenses. And depending on how much work that is going to be, he can determine whether it's going to be, with your help, obviously, whether it's going to be a presentation at the next meeting or the following meeting. I'm asking board members within reason, if it's not related to the legal expenses, and maybe it's something about the job description or the position itself, that they ask those questions well ahead of time and they're not waiting until the last minute before the meeting so that we come ready to make a decision. That's the ultimate.
That's a lot more clear.
Is that okay?
Got that.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Bale.
Are we going to be able to settle the question about whether this in-house legal counsel will need support staff?
Yes, that has been asked, and I've responded to that question a couple of times. In my office, I have 2 executive assistants, and the idea would be that my executive assistants would also be helping with the legal counsel. There's things that, for example, Citlali or Sandra currently take on. An example is Public Records Act requests. We get those often to my office, and they handle sometimes some of that work already by working with our outside counsel. So those are things that we expect that whoever we get, our size school district, and from the things that I have seen produced to us, for us, I don't see preparing legal briefs and things like that as a big need in currently, even with our current general counsel that we have. So I don't perceive the need for a paralegal position, and it would be somebody that would be working with my assistants as well. So I don't intend to bring, and we would basically, to your excellent point, we would set the expectation. You're coming to work here and you're basically able to do some of those things yourself.
So is everyone clear about what the asks are? All right. We are all on board. Thank you all. We will close out this item and we will move to H1, acceptance of donations.
I move that we accept donations for July 22nd, 2025 with gratitude.
I second.
We have a first and a second. And we will do a roll call vote. Ms. Caffrey.
Aye.
Mr. Vasquez. Mr. Banning.
Aye.
Dr. Beal. Ms. Munoz.
Aye.
And I'm aye. Unanimous. And now we have the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to pull? Dr. Maldonado.
I have been asked by Ed Services to pull consent agenda item number 11, Administrative Regulation 5121, grades, evaluation of student achievement. There is some language we want to make sure we clarify based on our block schedule, and we'll bring this item back at the next meeting.
Thank you. And
is that pulling all of item 11 or just that one?
Just the one that's 51, Administrative Regulation 5121.
Okay.
And do we have any public comment on consent agenda?
Yes, there are 2. On I-11, Brianna Serrano, and on I-16, Brianna Serrano.
Oh, now it is. Hi again. So my first comment was with regards to Regulation 5148.2 before after school programs, specifically going down to, sorry, took screenshots. specifically going down to with regards to point 6 admissions and point B, if the number of students wishing to participate in the program exceeds program capacity, students shall be selected for enrollment based on the following guidelines. There is guidelines with regards to those that are McKinney-Vento who are unhoused, as well as those for low income and EML, as well as foster youth. And one point I would just ask is to also have a point of point 3 of criteria prioritizing students with IEPs. It talks about students that are behind academically. However, that doesn't seem to always translate to actually providing that spot to children that are behind academically who do have IEPs. So that was my first point with that one, as well as having language to ensure that a student with an IEP that might need a one-on-one para doesn't exclude them from being able to do the AOK after school program, because I've heard from other parents at different school sites that their children were denied due to their children's disability when they tried to do AOK. It might have been last year or the year prior. Also, with regards to this same board policy, under number 2, summer intersession vacation programs. Again, just adding in the ESY being able to have that AOK after school enrichment program being part of the actual board policy. So it's not the same scrambling like we had this last year at all of our SEEK meetings when every time it was asked, is it going to be a full day program again? Is it going to be a full day program? We don't know yet. And just with things at the federal level, everything being cut down, especially with regards to protections for students with disabilities, it would mean a lot having that codified in the board policies or AR regulations.
Thank you.
Did you want to address the other one as well? This is all under consent agenda.
Okay.
This is I-16.
All right. Is it still the same amount of time? It's a different item.
Yeah. So this was approval of human resources recommendations.
Yes. Sorry, I was just pulling my screenshot of that. So back at the March 11th meeting, I had posed the question to the board and also to Dr. Becchio after attending the job fair from SB County Ed office and learning that other local districts here have para educators that are available as subs and also as part-time positions. And so I went and I checked the website tonight, and unfortunately there's still no option for that. So since we're constantly having para educator shortages and our other local districts are offering this, again, asking the board to have this be an option to try to get recruitment as well as for the playground supervisors. I also am wondering if the HR department or the board are reviewing the resignations and if there's trends at certain school sites or under certain administration. In particular, at Roosevelt, we were there for 2.5 years. And in those 2.5 years, my daughter had 4 different SPED teachers for SAI. And there was 2 psychologists, 2 different speech therapists, and there was also 3 different office managers. And there was also lots of turnover with paras, with playground supervisors, which were too much to count, and also a lot of turnover with teachers as well. So is this something that the district is looking at and seeing, are there trends and is there things that need to be updated? And then finally, I was excited to see that Christina Maria Fernandez is being hired on as the executive director at Student and Family Services. And on the board report, it mentioned it was also related to SPED. And the reason I was so excited is I saw that she had was recently on a podcast guest where She has 15 plus years in education leading with empathy and emotional intelligence. She's creating safe spaces where students and staff thrive through trauma responsive practices and compassionate leadership. And it says, ready for some real talk about transformative school culture. This one's for you. And so, yes, I listened to the podcast and I'm excited to see what she brings, especially at the school level for Roosevelt, and also with regards to the district level and cabinet level, based on lots of trauma that's been going on, specifically at Roosevelt for students, staff, and for families. Thanks.
Thank you.
Back to the board for any questions. Dr. Beal.
So specifically referring to our commentator, we do in our LCAP support populations. And so is anybody able to answer that question about why the after school programming does not include language for students with disabilities?
We have non-discriminatory language for all of our programs. And so students with IEPs cannot be excluded, just like students with 504 plans. We just did a training this year with Lozano Smith, one of our attorneys who are specialized in IEPs and 504 plans, for our counselors and all staff who make referrals to the after school program. We have our director of special education going in and doing training for the AOK staff. We allow students with IEPs in the after school program because after school program is an additional service. It's not part of the IEP. So there isn't a mandated that a 101 attends the after school program. But what we did was send out a mass invite to all trained paras in SPED and ask if they were ready or wanted to work extra hours in the after school program so that we had the specialized skills there. So there is not a process where they're not allowed. And that's covered under the discriminatory practices.
It sounds like we have language that includes certain populations. Is this not fall under one of those populations?
No, what the populations that are named are actually named in EDCO as a priority. That's why they're listed as a priority in after school programs.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchison.
Thank you.
Any other questions from my colleagues? Ms. Caffrey.
We can't hear you. You're muted.
Thank you. Apologies. I have a question about I-13.
That is adoption of board policy and exhibit and series for student use of technology. Go ahead, Ms. Caffrey.
So my question is what our plan is for the tech committee in the coming year, and are we going to have an AI specific component? Because the policy refers to AI use in our schools, but we don't yet have specific guidance on AI.
Mr. Cooper, Mr. Vince. He threw you out there quick.
Good evening. So regarding our AI technology, the student use technology policy is the overarching policy on how we guide our students. Obviously, the use of how they use their, anyway, you understand it has to do with technology. I think the key here specifically is aligning our current policy with other policies. So the important part of this policy in particular has to do with including AI components into our new policy. And it comes from, again, the state that's saying, here's the new laws, and these are the overarching parts of that law. And in part, one of the things that we're doing with this policy is incorporating other policies. So it includes addressing like academic honesty, talking about privacy use, non-discrimination, and copyright issues. So this new policy ties to all of that. So currently our tech policy does not do that. So what this does is bring us up to speed with that, as well as it defines AI as actually district technology. So that's number one. Second part is it prohibits sharing of confidential information in OpenAI. So that's the second part. This policy also restricts adjusting privacy settings in our AI tools for our students, as well as it allows us to monitor everything in terms of district use of AI. So it brings us up to that speed, number one. And number two, just to answer the question that Board Member Caffrey was asking, we will be focusing on this in our tech policy, our tech use committee. We started working on it last year. And so we'll complete that project to do a very specific AI policy to bring to the board once we get done this year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vince. Any additional questions for my colleagues? I'm not seeing any. Do we have a motion to approve with the exception of the part that Dr. Maldonado had removed? 5121 removed. Ms. Munoz.
Yes, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, except for number 11. That was
And 5120. Specifically 5121 11.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Ms. Munoz. We're going to roll call.
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Vasquez. Dr. Beal. Ms. Caffrey.
Aye.
Mr. Bailey.
Aye.
And I vote aye. That's unanimous. So that closes out the consent agenda, and that just leaves us with coming events. We have our next meeting on August 5th. Future agenda items, you can see the board governance calendar. We also were printed out a version. And that is it. And we will, Dr. Maldonado will make one more comment.
Board members, I would like you to notice and review for the 25-26, which Sandra, it says 24-25 on it. We'll have to change the year on it. She did everything right, but the 25-26 school year. If you'll notice in this year's governance calendar, we have, when I say we, I mean Sandra, has highlighted a red box around items that are compliance items with due dates. And she's added the bolded due date to those things. I'll go down to on the first page, for example, if it is needed, the 45-day budget revised report due August 11th. And we added those dates because these are required items that also typically end up going to the County Office of Ed or the State Department for different reasons. I know that we've talked a lot about how we manage our governance calendar, our board meetings, and so on. And this is just something we're adding to bring more clarity to the board as we move forward. And if there's something that you would like to ask questions about or have feedback on in terms of the way this is laid out, please reach out to me. But I just wanted to make sure that you noted that red box is there for a reason, along with the due dates.
Thank you for doing that. And thank you, Sandra, for setting that up. If there's nothing else, we will adjourn this meeting at 9:17. Everyone have a good night. We will see you August 5th. Bye-bye.